What's up, everybody? We're going to be getting started at 6 o'clock here. I'm just waiting for the rest of the class to arrive and setting up my supplies here. So I'll have my mic muted for just a minute. And then once everyone's here, we'll get this party started. But otherwise, make yourselves at home and, well, you're already home. Make sure you've got your favorite, beverage if you want it, some liquid inspiration as we call it. If you want some music playing in the background, perfect. If you want some music, have your favorite music going on. I can't play any music during the class because I want y'all to hear me really good and because of copyright stuff. But if you have your favorite jams going on in the background, you can shake it while you make it. You know what I'm saying? So get everything set up. And like I said, we'll start in just a minute. My mic is going to be muted, so you won't hear me as I'm setting up here. But once everyone's checked in, we'll get going, y'all. All right, I'm going to unmute myself again. What's up, everybody? I'm just going through my little list here, checking everybody off, making sure you're supposed to be here, so you don't get any sneaky people jumping in. And like I said, make sure you've got your favorite drink. You've got some music playing, a snack if you like it, you know. Set it up the way you like. I won't have any music playing on in the background here so y'all can hear me good, but definitely have your favorite jams going. And I'm going to check everyone in real quick here. Let's see. We got Virginia. Perfect. Shade. Perfect. Laura, we got you. Perfect. All right. Let's see. Cool. Amber, I got you. Brittany, I've got you. Diane, I got you as well. Cindy, we got you. Perfect. Awesome. Cool. All right. Cool, Cherry, got you. Joanne, got you. Perfect. I'm just checking everybody in right now. 1, 2, 3, 4. Cool. Let's see here. Where is the great? All right, looks like the whole gang is almost here. I'm going to open up our chat here. And just so everybody knows, okay, I see, Joanne, you said, am I supposed to hear you? I have no audio. Let me know if you can hear me now, everybody. If anyone's having trouble hearing me, leave me another little comment like that. And just so you know, I will not be able to hear anybody else, but you all should be able to hear me. And if you have questions or anything like that, we've got an open chat. If you look at the very bottom there, there's a little area that says chat, or it might pop up on the side there when I type stuff out. I'll say hello so you can find it. And anytime you have a question tonight, you can drop it for me in the live chat there, and I'll help you out as we're working tonight. Awesome. You got it fixed. Perfect. Very good. All right. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. 9, 10. Cool. Looks like the gang is almost all here. I think we might be waiting on like 2 more painters, but I'm going to go ahead and get into my little spiel, and then we'll jump into this. So let's go ahead and put our painting up that we're doing tonight, so y'all can see that good. All right. All right, y'all. Well, welcome everybody to our live virtual class at Painting with a Twist. I'm very excited to have y'all painting with me tonight, and I hope y'all are excited too. Get ready to smush some paint around. Just FYI, that's all we're gonna do tonight, all right? We're gonna smush that paint. We're gonna smush it real good. And then we're just gonna see what happens. So my name is Tyler. They also like to call me the Paint Doctor. They've given me a sweet nickname because I'm really good at fixing paintings. So if you have any questions as you're going tonight, I will not leave you hanging. If you have a little uh-oh moment, a little happy accident, that's okay. You leave me a little comment in the chat, and bam, I've got you, all right? And I'll be checking the chat after each step. So I'll be walking you through our painting tonight, step by step. So if you've never, ever painted with us before, that should give you a bit of relief, all right? You don't have to know anything about painting tonight. I've got you covered, all right? So go ahead and take a deep breath with me. Let out that air real slow. There you go. We're going to go to our happy place. We will get lost in the smushing process. And before you know it, you're going to have a beautiful new painting to take home tonight. So have faith in those layers and know the more paint you put on there, the more you're going to see it come together, all right? So don't judge anything until the end. It's going to come together the more paint we put on there. So a couple things before we can jump into this. First off, let's make sure we've got all the supplies we need here, and you can be very creative tonight. So we're going to play around with it. First off, you need a surface to paint on. So, you know, I've got a gessoed canvas here. We recycle our canvases. So a lot of times you'll see under paintings on ours. So that's why mine's got a little texture there, but make sure you got a surface to paint on, and it doesn't have to be canvas. That's cool thing about these BYOB classes, you can paint on anything you want. You could paint on rocks, you could paint on poster board, thick paper, cardboard. You could paint on a wine glass, whatever you're feeling. So be creative with that surface there. And then once we got a surface, make sure you've got a cup of paint water. Nice little cup of paint water. If you have some wine with you and you've got that next to you, you might want to put your wine on the opposite side of the table from where your cup of paint water is. This will keep you from accidentally dunking your brush in your wine cup. It actually happens a lot, so be careful, okay? And if you're using acrylic paint, it's usually non-toxic. So if you accidentally drink a little paint water tonight, don't worry. It's all good, all right? It's just not going to taste very good, and it's not fermented, so you're getting no benefits. So I don't recommend it. But make sure you got a little cup of paint water at home. I just use I recycle pickle jars and things like that. So something you don't mind getting a little paint on. And then we'll also want to make sure we've got some paper towels, or you could use a paint rag. Again, at home, I like to recycle stuff. So I'll just use like an old t-shirt or some old towels and tear them up into little paint rags because you can use those over and over. So if you start getting into these virtual classes, that's some good stuff or ways you can kind of recycle, which you've already got on hand. And then for our brushes tonight, we'll probably only need 2 brushes. However, I will say if you want, you could have an optional 3rd brush there. But mostly we're going to want a big brush and a little brush. So I'll show you what I'm working with. I'm going to be using this big flat brush here. So you want a big flat brush is great. It could be a round brush, but I like to use a big flat brush there. And we name our brushes at Painting with a Twist. It's more fun that way. So you can name your brush whatever you want, but I will be calling this brush Big Mama. Say, what's up, girl? Big Mama is going to be working it tonight. So make sure you got a big brush. You'll also want a little bitty brush, like a medium, small, or a little detail brush there. And it can be a round brush. It can also be a flat brush. It doesn't have to be round there. So one little detail brush would be great. And I'll call the little brush, I'm going to name this one Little Mama. So that'll be easy. Say, hey, Little Mama. So we'll take good care of our brushes tonight. And then finally, if you want to, this is optional. Like I said, you could definitely get away with just having 2 brushes there. But if you want a medium brush, I'm going to have a medium flat brush here. Or you could use a medium round brush. But honestly, if you don't have a medium brush, a small brush is going to work just as great. So no worries there, all right? And then let's take all of our brushes, whether you're using 2 or 3 brushes, let's hold them proudly. And we want to make sure they're happy. So we're going to take all of our brushes and go ahead and dunk them in your cup of paint water there. This is where you want to keep them when you're not using them. This keeps them happy little fish. If you leave these brushes on your table, look, you're going to look down in a second and you're going to have some very sad, dry, crusty, dead fish. You don't want that. So leave them in that cup when you're not using them. That keeps those brushes happy. And then we'll definitely need a paint palette. I use just paper plates. If you've got a little fancy plastic one with the little pods, that works great. I've even just taken when I was running out of paint palettes or didn't have one, I would even take like a piece of cardboard and just cover it with like some saran wrap or something. And that actually works really well too. So whatever you got on hand. And again, we can be a little playful with our colors tonight. You don't have to have all the colors that I've got here, but I'll show you what I've got. So we'll definitely want white and black. You always need those 2 colors for pretty much everything, just about. So I've got whites over here. I've got some black over here. And then besides that, we've just got our primary colors, a yellow, a red, and a blue. Now, you could get away with just having blue even. You could get away with not having the red. If you didn't have the red, you could just make a sunset, and you just wouldn't have the red letter C on there. But it would still look awesome. So you could play around with it if you don't have these colors, And you can even add a color in that you don't have if you're feeling it. This is your painting at the end of the night. So be as creative as you want, okay? And then I will suggest also to have an extra little tester plate. I like to just have an empty paper plate or a piece of paper or just a little rip off a piece of cardboard, anything like that. It's good to have a tester sheet because every once in a while you want to test out your brush strokes or you want to mix up your color, that kind of thing. It's a good place to have an area to practice. I'll have an extra canvas that I'll be demoing stuff on too, and that'll be kind of like another little practice spot. So make sure you have an extra little piece of paper or a space to mix other colors there. And that's pretty much all you're gonna need for tonight. You might want some painting clothes on, something you don't mind getting a little paint on. And if you have some clothes that don't have paint on them and you get some paint on them, hey, that's okay. You just got a brand new painting outfit. So there you go. But otherwise, wear some old t-shirts, something you don't mind. And some of you, by the way, I can see some of your screens on there. It's up to you whether I see you or not. If you disabled it, then I won't be able to see you on there. So that is kind of up to you. And I have to scroll to actually see all of the screens there. So if you ever need some help or you're trying to show me something on the screen there, let me know on the little chat and I can scroll over to see your painting if you're holding it up. Want to ask me a question about something you want to change there. But otherwise, it is time to get this painting party started. I hope y'all are ready. And like I said, this is a painting party at home. So keep that at the forefront of your mind tonight. That's number one. That's why we say painting with a twist. This is fun. Need some help, you just leave a little comment in the chat. My name tag's right here. You can also call me the Paint Doctor, and I have a lot of hair back here, so sometimes people call me Man Bun. So whatever works for me, as long as you don't be afraid to ask for that help. Okay, everybody, let's get this party started. We are gonna start off with our biggest brush. So let's go ahead and grab Big Mama out of that cup of water there. Say, what's up, girl? Tap it on the side of your cup a little bit, take off some of that moisture, and then give it a little tap on your paper towel. It's okay to have a little moisture on your brush. That's actually a good thing. You just don't want water dripping off of there. So give it a little tap on that paper towel. And before we start, you gotta be a little loose when you paint. So let's loosen our wrists up a little bit. I want you loosey-goosey tonight. Spin those wrists for me. Spin those wrists. Just shake it out a little bit. Shake it out. Shake it out. Or you can do your best wacky inflatable arm tube man impersonation. That's how you want to paint. So embrace the motion. I have a small point to this. I'm not just being weird, although I like to do that. I wanted you to notice the texture of your surface. Canvas and really most surfaces that we paint on are pretty absorbent. So keep that in mind. If you're painting on canvas, wood, paper, cardboard, all those surfaces are gonna act like a dry sponge. So if you've never painted before, I want you to remember the golden rule, which is mo paint, mo better, all right? All that means is the more you have on your brush, the easier the paint's gonna blend and mix and all that good stuff. So don't be afraid to use a lot of paint because the more you use, it's gonna work easier for you. So let's take our big brush, dunk the whole thing in white paint. We're gonna load it up. We wanna put a lot of white paint on there. Look how much paint I got on there. You gotta make that brush saucy. Make it a saucy brush. No bristles showing. If there's any bristles showing, that's too many bristles. You gotta cover them up. So we're gonna get a lot of white on our brush, glob it on good, and then here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go to my dark blue here, and I'm gonna dunk a corner of my brush in a little bit of blue. See, I scooped up a little on the corner. Now the hard part is this is too much paint. I don't need that much blue. That's way more than I need, but it's hard to scoop up a little bit. So I'm gonna take that corner of my brush, and I'm gonna go to the edge of my plate here and go, just kidding, I don't want that. I don't want that, and wipe it off. Wipe it off. Wipe it off until the corner of your brush turns baby blue. A very light sky blue there. So here's what my brush looks like. White on the whole brush, I put it in blue, I wiped off the blue, and then I've got a little bit of hint of a very light baby blue on the corner of the brush. And that's what you want, okay? So this canvas is almost chopped in half for this painting. There's a little bit more sky than water. So I'll show you on this one. There's a little bit more sky than water. If I hold my hand up here, it's about one hand width up from the bottom where we're gonna start. If you have small little angel baby hands, you can make it a little taller. But we're gonna go to the very bottom here, and I'm gonna go one hand width up, or you could say almost like a third of your canvas there, or a little over a third. And then we'll put a little blob right there, a little boop. So again, one hand width up, put a little blob right about where your fingertips are. Doesn't matter which side of the brush you use. Either side is great, either side. Just make sure you use those sound effects Sound effects always help, okay? And then let's make a little dot in the same place on the other side. You don't even have to use your hand. You could just hold your brush like this and just go whoop all the way across and put another little boop. Another little boop. I like to use a lot of technical terms, whoops and boops, all right? So try to keep up. Just kidding. Okay, I just saw your comment, Virginia. You do cut in out sometimes, okay, when I talk. All right, let me know if you ever miss an instruction there, and I can repeat it anytime you need, and I've got you. So sorry about that cutting out there. Hopefully that won't happen too much tonight. We haven't had too many problems with that, so hopefully that'll be all right. But let me know, y'all. Anytime you miss something, I'm happy to repeat those steps if I ever cut out on you. Or just if you're having questions about it, I can re-show you stuff anytime. We're going to take our two little dots here, and we're going to go whoop all the way across. All the way. Make a nice thick stripe there. Nice and thick with that baby blue. Just mix the white and that little bit of blue until it makes a very, very light blue. It's so light, it's barely blue at this point. It's barely blue, but that's perfect. That's what we want. So lots of white, just a little bit of blue. If you need to add a little more paint to your brush, remember when you add that blue, wipe it off so you don't have too much, and then go back into it. Now, as we're painting, as we're starting to get a feel for it here, it should feel like it's melting on your surface. It should feel like butter on hot toast or cream cheese on a bagel, all right? Otherwise, you're not using enough paint. The more you use, the easier it glides. You should never have to press down hard. So I want you to use that paint like Paula Deen uses butter, if you know what I'm saying. All right, once we've got this little light blue line here, we're gonna take our brush again, load it up, lots of white on there. Glob it on nice and saucy. And then again, let's get some blue on the brush. And let's get a little bit more blue, but still tap off a little bit so you don't get too much there. But let's get a little more blue this time. A little bit more blue. White and a little more blue. And we're gonna keep brushing up from this line. And every time you keep going up here, let's go to about the middle of our sky. Every time you get more paint, I want you to add a little bit more blue so your sky gradually gets darker. So I'm gonna overlap that last line I did there. And it's gonna get a little bit darker here. Let those mix along the edge. And then once I'm ready to add another brush stroke, I'll get some more white and a little more blue. And blue in the middle of that sky. And you're overlapping all of those other colors as you go, all those shades of blue. We're just trying to get a couple shades of blue in here. It's a little up and down game, a little back and forth action there. And again, make sure you're using plenty of paint. It should never feel like you have to press down very hard at all. Your brush should just glide for you. It should feel like it's melting. That's why it's so relaxing, you know? So make sure you got lots of paint on there. If you got music playing in the background, don't be afraid to shake it while you make it tonight. You can wiggle while you work, all right? It's all about expressing yourself on that canvas. And remember, if you have questions, let me know. You just pop them in the chat there, and I will be checking the chat out in between steps to see how we're doing there. All right. I don't see any more questions yet. Okay. So again, we just kept adding blue. We still had white on the brush. You want to get to about the middle of the canvas, and you want it to basically just go from a very light blue to like a medium shade of blue there, right in the middle. You can see I'll show you on this example, you can see the top of the sky is going to get even darker. So we're going to get even darker after this. So once you do get to about the middle, we want to catch that before, it starts drying so we can blend. So here's what my brush looks like. I've still got blue and white on there, and I'm not going to clean the brush. Keep it a dirty brush, all right? Don't clean it. Just take that brush and you can wipe it off a little bit on the edge of your plate, on your napkin, your table. If someone's painting with you, just wipe it off on your neighbor's arm. Whatever's closest, all right? And I will say, if you're painting with others at home, painting on your neighbor is encouraged. You know what to do. Wait till your neighbor's in the zone when they're real focused. that's your best opportunity for a little face painting, a little arm tattoo. You know what I'm saying? It's a good surprise for them later when they walk into that bathroom and look in the mirror. And they go, where did that come from? So wipe off your brush really good. Don't clean it. And let's dunk it in blue. Lots of blue this time. So I didn't clean my brush. I'm going to dunk the whole thing in dark blue. And then this time, we don't want it to get too dark yet. So I'm going to dunk a corner of my brush now in white. So a little white on the corner there. So it's kind of the opposite of how we started with lots of white, then a little bit of blue. Now we're going lots of blue, a little bit of white. But don't feel like you got to wipe off that little bit of white there. Let's keep that on there. And then we'll want to keep going. Let's take this color up 1 to 2 more brush strokes, however many it takes to blend the two. So to blend these, first let's just brush above it, let that white and blue mix, and then brush down into that color once they start mixing there. And it should get a little darker. If it doesn't look darker, then we want to get a little more blue into it. We want to get a little darker there. So that's the idea. Our sky should be getting a little bit darker now. And that's the goal. And remember, if you have any questions, let me know. Paint Doctor's here. I will not leave you hanging, I promise, all right? Or if you ever need me to bring the canvas a little closer to the screen, anything like that, you let me know. Very good. I can see a few of y'all's looking good. Very nice blending. And I'll show you some really cool tricks for blending. Oh, beautiful, looking great. Very nice. Thanks for holding it up for me. Awesome, y'all. So now that our sky's getting darker, I can pretty much go to pure dark blue, and we can just take that all the way to the top. So for this, I will go ahead and give my brush a light rinse. That way, I kind of get the white out of the brush, and my colors will get a little darker. So I'm going to take my dirty brush. I'm going to paint little circles on the bottom of the cup. This is the best way to get your big brush, Big Mama clean. She's been a dirty brush. Get her clean. Paint circles on the bottom of that cup. Make a little whirlpool, and then tap it dry. Now, sometimes, if your brush is like mine, you'll see the paint likes to stick right here where the bristles meet the metal. If you see that happening, just give it a good wipe on your paper towel there, wipe that off, and rinse it a second time, and that'll take care of that for you. So all I'm gonna do now is, once my brush is clean, I'm gonna load it up, lots of dark blue, just dark blue, and I'm gonna take this all the way to the top, nice and saucy, glob it on that brush, and smooth it out. Glob it on and smooth it out. And we do want to blend this dark blue into those medium shades of blue there. So you start above it, and then you brush down into it. So those colors get to know each other, and they get that nice little fade happening. Once it's blending, you can just take blue all the way to the top, all the way to the tippity top there. And I'll show you some really cool tricks for blending too, if you're having trouble with any of that in just a second here. You kind of have the whole, once you have all the colors on there, you can easily come back and dust over a spot. You're trying to blend a little bit more before that paint's too dry. So I'll show you that in just a second here. But make sure you go ahead and take that dark blue all the way to the top. We might even get a little darker up here, but first we're gonna start with that layer, and then we'll build on that as we go. You can always think of painting as a layering process. It's kind of like baking a cake, building a house, lasagna, onions. You get the idea, anything with layers. So, think of it as a layering process, and know that we'll have drying breaks in between those layers, and that's kind of how you get those colors to really pop and that kind of thing. That being said, if you have a hair dryer, that can be really handy later on when we are doing those drying breaks. So if you do have one, I'll remind you about that later. Oops, I got a little drip. Now, let's say you're having trouble blending stuff. I'll show you a cool little trick before we get too further into it. Let's say you've got like a really, I'm just gonna mess mine up a little here. Let's say I've got this really dark line in one spot, and it's just not blending the way I want. There's a good trick for that. You can rinse your brush really good. You can paint little circles on the bottom of that cup again, tap it dry again, and I can just take a clean brush. There's no paints on here, totally clean. It is a little wet, but it's not dripping with water there. And I can just go right along the edge here and just dust that spot. And look at that, it's already blending that color. And that's the nice thing, if the paint is still wet, this works really, really good for blending. So if you're having any trouble with that, that works amazing. Just a clean brush while the paint's wet, just dust it, Needs to be a little bit damp, but you don't want water dripping off of that brush. Another thing you could do is you could always come back if that wasn't working, and you could come back with white, and you could start at the bottom with white, and you could brush up like this, and that would also kind of help blend any of that paint if it was still wet. So if you're ever having trouble with any of that blending, those are some little tricks and tips as you go here, just to kind of play around with that. Or if you just want your sky lighter at the bottom, you can always come back with white again, brush up from the bottom, and that can help you again, just kind of blend everything, smooth it out, that kind of thing. It's up to you how blended you want it to be. It can be very streaky, it can be very smooth. That's really up to you. You know, every time you walk outside, isn't that sky expressing itself in its own unique way, you know? So let your sky have its own personality. Don't be afraid to have a more streaky sky or a more smooth blended sky. It's really up to that personal preference. You can't go wrong, all right? Play around with it. And the more you brush it, the more it will, you know, blend into one solid color. The less you brush it, the more streakiness you will see. So you can always play around with that depending on the effect that you're going for there. So don't be afraid to play around with it, but don't overstroke it, all right? So we'll do one more little touch here with the sky, and then we'll jump down to that water there. So what you want to do, once you've got this whole sky filled in, you're happy with your little blending there, you can add a little bit of a darker blue at the very top edge here, and it's very subtle. You don't want a lot of this, just like one brush stroke worth. So what I'll do here is, just to make the top of my sky a hint darker, I might even tilt it a little so y'all can see it a little better there, because I know I get a little glare when the paint's wet. But you'll want to keep the blue on your brush, lots of dark blue. And then I got to get a little more, kind of cover that brush up good. And then once you've got lots of dark blue on there, you get a little bit of black on the corner there. It's hard to see because that's so dark there. But I put a little black, and that's probably more than I need. So I'm going to tap a little off. And you can even pre-mix this if you want, a little bit on your plate there to make sure it's not just pure black. But you're going to make what I'd call like midnight blue, just a very, very dark blue. It should still look like blue, but it's got a little hint of black. And I'm going to take that. You don't have to do this color if you don't want to. It's very across the top there. You don't want much, just a little bit. And that's really all I'm going to do there. I'm going to hold that a little closer. So there is black in that blue at the top. It's very subtle there. And you can see it's hard to see it. It's so subtle, but it does add a hint of a darker shadow up there if you want it. Otherwise, we are done with our sky for now. So nice job, my twisters. Nice job. Give yourselves a hand on that sky. And let me know if you have questions. Looking good. Very nice. Very nice. Great blending. If anyone has questions, I'm going to check the chat real quick here. Otherwise, we are going to start working. Nice. Looks good, Amber. Awesome. Looks great, Jen. I can see yours too. Beautiful. Well, let me know if anyone has questions. Nice, Virginia. That looks awesome. Fantastic. Y'all are making me look good tonight. Awesome. We're already getting in touch with that inner artist. That's what's up. Let's get into the water next. The water is really fun. So it's going to be kind of like what we just did. Very, very similar. However, there is a little hint of kind of like a blue-gray at the very top of our water. Then it's just going to get light blues into dark blues, just like our sky. So it's going to be like the sky, but it's going to be a little So, like I said, there is a hint of kind of a blue-gray at the very, very base of that water where it's kind of creating a shadow below the mountains, basically. So we're going to start there, and then we're going to blend that into the rest of our blue. So let's start off and get lots of white on our brush here. Lots of white. Really glob it on again, nice and saucy. Nice and saucy. Don't be afraid to reload your paint. I know I'm getting a little low on white, so I'm going to reload here. Reload. So we'll want to load it up. Again, lots of white on there. Really glob that on. Nice and saucy. Oh, let's see. Video is low bandwidth. Audio cuts out as well. Okay, you keep freezing. I am so sorry to hear that, y'all. Let me know if you're missing anything. I'm going to repeat those steps since I was freezing for a second there. And so, again, what we want to do is get lots of white on there. Glob it on good. And then what we're going to do is dunk a corner of the brush in a little hint of blue. And you want to tap a little off again like we did before. So get a little hint of blue, tap it off so it turns kind of a light blue. And then this time, we're going to get just like, and actually you've got two options here. If you want it to be like a kind of a purpley tone, this would look really good, or you can use a hint of black. So I'm going to grab a little bit, I'll show you a little bit of both here. So I'll grab a little bit of red first. So I've got white, blue, and a little red there, and I'll tap that corner again, and it should turn into kind of like a very dark, kind of purpley blue there. So here's what, all right, let me flip it. Let me get a little more mixed there. And there's what my brush is looking like. So I've got white on the whole brush. I dunked one corner, a little bit of blue, and then I dunked it in a little bit of red, and I tapped those two colors together on that corner until my corner turned kind of a light purpley. It could be kind of a purpley gray. It doesn't have to be very bright purple. Otherwise, you could do a little bit of blue and black, and that would also work if you don't have red. Blue and black will also give you kind of a blue-gray, and that's kind of what we're looking for anyways, like a purpley blue-gray or a blue-gray, and that's what we want. Once we've got that, we want to face the corner of our brush that has purple or gray, blue-gray, towards the sky, and the white part towards the water, towards the bottom of the canvas here. So I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to go right next to this. I've got my purple, gray touching the base of my sky, and I've got my white going right below that. And I'm just going to brush this until those get a little blended along that edge there. I'm going to grab a little more of that purpley gray just so you can see it a little better there. Go right up next to your sky. It's okay if you touch the sky there. And we just keep brushing until that purpley gray kind of blends a little bit into the white that's already on your brush there. And that gives us a fun little shadow just at the base of our mountains later. It'll look really nice there. I'm gonna hold that a little closer so we can see it better. And I know I got a little smudge. Ignore my little smudge. We're about to paint over that. But there you go. You can see a little better. A little better. Okay. It's very subtle. Very, very subtle there. But it does give us a little shadow. A little bitty shadow. Once we've got that blend in there, we gotta catch the white underneath it before it gets too dry. So let's go ahead and rinse the brush again. Clean that brush good. Again, paint little circles on the bottom of that cup. Paint little circles. And tap it off. And then from here, it's gonna be just like we did the sky. We're gonna start off with a very pale blue, and then we're gonna work our way into those darker blues. So I'll start again with lots of white. I'll dunk a corner of my brush in blue and wipe off that blue a little bit. So again, you wanna get white on the whole brush, dunk the corner in a little bit of blue, and then wipe off that blue a little bit so it's not too strong yet. So it's kind of a lighter baby blue again, or sky blue there. And then to blend this out a little easier, what we're gonna do now is the blue side of your brush is gonna face the bottom of the canvas, and the white is gonna face the top. So it's overlapping the white that you just had on there. So I'll show you on here too. So up close here, again, my white is facing the top, and the blue, I'm gonna face that towards the bottom here, and I'm gonna overlap this line so that I overlap the white, and the bottom of it's gonna fade into like a light blue. So that's what we want next. And we'll just bring that down a little ways. Once you've got that white and that pale blue starting to blend, you can start adding more blue and less white as you work your way down. And we want to get to about a medium shade of blue before we go to that pure dark blue. So once I've got this little fade going on here, you can see mine a little closer there. I've got my dark purpley blue fading into white, and then that white fading into that blue. it creates this cool little stripe. And then I'll just keep adding blue. I'm gonna keep adding blue to my brush. This time you can go a little faster by adding the blue. It can get darker a little quicker, but make sure you overlap your last brush stroke. And every time you get darker, each brush stroke kind of halfway overlaps the brush stroke before it, above it. So always kind of make sure you're overlapping your work as you go there so that those colors blend and you become friends. We're gonna work our way down to at least the middle of your water. You can even go a little bit past the middle, and you want to get to about a medium shade of blue once you get to the middle there. So keep adding that blue so you get to about a medium shade of blue. You don't have to add much white. You just keep adding more and more blue. More and more blue as we go. Again, keep that brush saucy. If you ever notice little white dots appearing in your brush strokes, that is your canvas giving you a little signal, a little message. He's saying, I'm a thirsty canvas. So load up that brush. That little texture in there will tell you when you don't have enough paint on your brush, so it's a good little note. And again, it's the opposite of using pens, pencils, tablets, because you don't have to press down hard as long as you got enough paints on there. That's why painting's so relaxing, so therapeutic, You can kind of just get lost in those light brush strokes there. And that's the cool thing about painting. It really does kind of clear your mind. I've had a lot of people compare painting to almost like meditation, because your mind really does clear of everything going on because you're so focused on smooshing that paint around. So have fun with that. Smush it like you mean it tonight. And if you got music playing, shake it while you make it, all right? You got to express yourselves on that canvas. So once we've got a medium shade of blue, again, I'll just rinse off my brush and get pure dark blue, and I will take that pure dark blue all the way to the bottom there. So once I've got about a medium shade of blue, rinse the brush, load it up, pure dark blue. Looks like I'm running low. I'm gonna have to reload my blue. Don't be afraid to grab more when you need it. And we'll keep adding blue all the way to the bottom. If you have questions, I'm gonna be checking that chat again, so let me know. And we are open to any feedback because this is pretty new. We are adapting with things, And so these new virtual classes, I'm pretty excited about them. This is, I think, our 4th, maybe 5th class. So we're still pretty new with these. And I'll be the exclusive virtual artist doing all of our painting at home classes. And if you're ever running out of supplies, check out our take at home kits. You can buy a take at home kit for a virtual class to have us walk you through it step by step. Or if you want to pick out a painting and do it on your own time, you can pick up a take-it-home kit for that as well. And it's all curbside pickup. So that's pretty sweet. You don't even have to walk in the studio. We put everything in a bag for you. And when you call us when you get here, and we put it on the curb right there, and you pick it up. So it's pretty sweet if you're ever needing more paints, brushes, paint palettes, paper towels. We load you up with all kinds of supplies so that you can make your own painting at home and a surface of your choice. You can get a canvas. I believe maybe wood palettes, if you want to paint on a wood palette, stuff like that. So if you're needing some supplies, check out the Take It Home kits. That's another new thing we're doing alongside these virtual classes so that you can twist at home with us and so we can keep that paint party action happening. So make sure you, again, bring that dark blue all the way to the bottom there. And then just like we did with our sky, let's say you want to put a little hint of black at the very, very bottom edge here with like half a brush stroke. You could keep the blue on there, and this is optional, you don't have to. And you can add a little bit of black to it, just a tiny, tiny microscopic amount. Black is a very strong color, and it always overpowers other colors. So anytime you're mixing stuff with black, start with just a little microscopic. Good. Awesome. Beautiful. Well done, y'all. Nice. These are looking fantastic. Awesome. Is my blue dark enough? Let's check it out. That looks great. That's very nice. If you want to go a hint darker, you can, but that's optional. You've got a beautiful blend going on there, and it looks fantastic. I wouldn't touch it too much. That's just optional there, really, on how dark you want it. But it looks great. We're going to actually have some darker lines coming in later, and that's going to give it more contrast in the water I'll show you there. We're going to have lots of little water ripples. So that'll kind of be our nice, like, contrasty area. So any questions before we go on, everybody? Next thing we're going to be doing is getting into our clouds. And keep in mind with this painting, we do cover up quite a bit of this background. It's a beautiful background and a great place to build the rest of our painting on. But just to kind of show you again from the example here, and I painted this one as well, you can see how we're going to cover up most of our background there quite a bit with clouds, mountains, and our Colorado Sea, and a ton of ripples in the water at the bottom there. And that's going to cover up quite a bit of this. But once you got your base, we can build on that base. It's all about that. So, any questions before we go on? All right, sweet. Let's talk about clouds. I love painting clouds. They're so fun to paint. So it's up to you how many clouds you want to paint on here. I'll show you the example one again. This one's got, it looks like 4 fluffy clouds here. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, oh, 5. My bad, 5 clouds. This one looked connected to me because it's covered up. Now keep that in mind. Some of your clouds will get covered up by your letter C or your mountains. The cool thing is that's just going to give that painting more depth. So don't worry about that. But for the most part, clouds are very funky, and I'll show you how we can get there. I'm going to give you a little demo, and then we'll jump into it. But when you make clouds, I want you to keep 3 key points in mind. I want you to keep them lumpy. I want you to keep them bumpy. And most importantly, you must keep those clouds very funky, all right? So here's how they work. They're very random, and after painting clouds, you'll have a whole new appreciation for how they look because they are so weird. But I'm going to get a little demo canvas up here to kind of show you how they work. And I'm going to make them a lighter color so you can see them, and then we'll go from there. So we'll use our small or a medium brush here to make our clouds. Since my canvas is white, I'm going to paint some blue clouds just so you can see them there. But I just want to give you a bigger demo so you can really see how those clouds happen. So I'm going to scooch a little closer. So when I make a cloud, here's how I like to start. If you have a little tester piece of paper, you can now test things on that sheet or use your extra little plate, whatever you want to practice if you feel like it. So here's how I make clouds. I start off with a line. And you can see a lot of these clouds look like that. They have a little line underneath them. This helps you figure out how long you want your cloud. So first off, and you can practice, you don't have to jump into it yet, but you start with a little line. This tells you how long do I want my cloud. I'm going to go a little darker so you can see it a little better. And there we go. There we go. Now you can see that. And this would be a very big cloud because I made a very long line. If I wanted a little cloud, I would just do like a little bitty line. And once you've got your line, you want to mess up that line. So I start swirling my brush. And I like to think of it as like a lumpy staircase. So I start with the tallest point of my staircase in the middle of my cloud or somewhere. It doesn't have to be right in the middle. It can be off-centered, which is nice. But you start with the tallest point, so you start swirling real big on top of that line. Then you start doing smaller and smaller swirls on the edges, and it should kind of fizzle out. And there's my happy little cloud. So you can see it's big in the middle, and then smaller, lumpy staircase coming down the sides. Now, once we've got our cloud on there, there's actually some little shadows and highlights. So we'll get into that in a little bit. But let's go ahead and start playing around on the canvas here so I can show you a little more. So what you'll want to do is, like I said, use your medium or small brush. And if you're worried about making a cloud too big, definitely start with, the little brush there would be great to start with. So I'm going to get mine a little closer so y'all can see me do these clouds a little more detailed. So we'll start with white, just white here, just white. So I'm going to rinse out my brush. I'm going to get just white. Whichever brush you're using, you remember, tap it off a little bit on the side of that cup and on your paper towel, and then load it up. Lots of white. Again, we want to have a lot of paint for this because you're going to be blending into these clouds while they're wet. So make sure you got plenty of paints on here. So nice and saucy. So I'm using a medium brush or a round small would work good. I'll make a big cloud to start and then go from there. Don't feel like you have to put your clouds where I'm putting them. You put those clouds wherever you want. This is your happy little sky. So those clouds are going to live wherever you say they live, all right? So I'll go ahead and show you one. So again, I start with a line here. However long I want my cloud, so I'm going to make a big one just so y'all can see it good. Once I've got my wobbly little line, I start swirling. So I'm going to do a big swirl in the middle and smaller swirls on the sides. Nothing has to be totally dry for this because we are going to be adding shadows into this and little hints of blue there. But there's how I get the shape of my cloud. And make them weird. The weirder the better. Weirder the better. Once you've got the shape of your cloud, we're going to be putting shadows into each cloud. So I want to go ahead and show you that, and then I'll set you free and let you start playing. But you want to add the shadows while that paint is wet. And you can always come back and mess with your little bumps on your clouds here and make some bigger, some smaller. You know, the hardest thing about clouds is being random. Our brains want to make each cloud the exact same. It wants to make them in a pattern. So don't let that happen. Try to give each cloud its own little personality. That is number one, number one. So once you've got your cloud, you filled it in with white there, you've got the shape, you like the shape, then we want to add a little shadow. You want to do the shadow before it dries, and you can do this, you know, each cloud you want to make the shape of it, then add the shadow, rinse the brush, and go to the next cloud there. And that way the paint doesn't dry too fast. So let me show you this shadow color here. If y'all look at these clouds, you can see up close, there's some funky little shadows at the base of them, really fun. And then you can see they're not very hard, they're very swirled into the paint. So that's why I want to catch it, you know, before it's too dry. So for your shadow color, you could use a kind of a blue purple, or you can use a blue gray. So what I'll do is I will keep the white on my brush, and I'll scoop a little white maybe to the middle of my plate here. I'll add blue and a little bit of red, or you can do blue and a little bit of black. And I'm gonna make a purpley color here for my shadow. And the less white you have, obviously the darker it's gonna get there. So you don't have to have a lot of white in there. But I'm gonna keep adding blue and red until I get a nice kind of a dark purpley gray. Or you can do black and blue with a little white as well. Once you've got a purpley gray color or a blue gray, this becomes your shadow color. And you start underneath your cloud, and you start just like you did before. You put a little line underneath the cloud, and then you swoop up. You want to make like little happy faces. So I'm swooping like this, making little happy faces kind of following the lumps above it. And if it's really hard line like this, like it's really hard and it's not blending, maybe your paint started drying. Get a little more white and take that white and just swirl it right along that edge. And that will make that shadow become a little more part of that cloud there. And you want to keep the top of your cloud as white as you can keep it, and the bottom has a little shadow there. So that's all we're going to be doing there. Starting with white, smudging a little shadow at the base, and then you do little swirls or little happy faces, swooping up into that cloud so that that shadow lightly mixes. So that's what we're going to play around with. And again, if you have questions, let me know. Otherwise, have fun making those lumpy, bumpy, funky clouds, all right? You got to be one with that cloud. And make sure you're kind of rinsing your brush off in between clouds, because, you know, when you do the little shadow color, that's going to mix with that white. So make sure you kind of rinse it off so that when you start each new cloud, it's pure white again. And then build those shadows into it. Put those clouds wherever you want. You don't have to copy me. They live wherever you say they live. This is your happy little sky. We basically just want some nice little Bob Ross afros, you know, floating in the sky there. If you know who Bob Ross is, you got that one. If you don't, he is on Netflix, so you can catch up. All right, so again, lumpy, bumpy, funky. Don't make all your lumps the same. Some longer, some shorter. Start with your line, swirl on top of that line, then come back with your purple or blue gray and add a shadow at the bottom. You just put a little line and swoop up a little bit and let it lightly mix with that wet paint. Lightly mix. If it's too hard of a shadow, wipe off the brush, get more white, and swirl white along the edge of the shadow. And this will make it get a little more mixed in, a little more blended, and that kind of thing. You can always do a little back and forth game. Painting's kind of like a ping pong match sometimes. Sometimes you're like, ooh, that was too dark. I got to brighten that up. Sometimes you're like, ooh, that's not dark enough. I need to go a little darker. So you can always gauge it however you want there. But as you have questions, let me know, Otherwise, just let it flow. Let it go tonight. Get lost in those brush strokes. That's what it's all about. Get in touch with that inner artist. If you've got some liquid inspiration there and you're feeling nervous to do one of those clouds, just take a sip of that liquid inspiration or a deep breath and go for it. You got this. I believe in you. Be one with the cloud, one with the brush. You are that brush tonight. You are that cloud. For real though, the weirdest thing about clouds is how random they are, and that's the part that makes our brain feel weird sometimes when we're painting them, but really make them weird. And like I said, try to make each one different. Try not to make them all the same size. Each one should be a little different. And if you don't like a cloud, you can always cover it up later on with your mountain peaks or your Colorado Sea. To you. I'm gonna have another bigger one on the right, and then I'm gonna add 2 smaller clouds there. So again, put them all in different places, make them all different sizes there. But keep them weird. Clouds are so fun, so don't worry about it. Just make them messy. Mo messy, mo better. And again, make sure you're globbing on that paint because you really, really want it wet when you add in your shadows. That way it mixes better, blends a little better. Your shadows don't have to be very precise. The more kind of blended they are, the better. They can just kind of lightly fade into all that wet paint. And you can see the bottom of your cloud doesn't have to stay a perfect line. You can have lots of little choppy lines coming off of it. That's always kind of fun. I like to have lots of messy little lines. Like I said, the messier the better. And that's the thing about nature. Nature is extremely random. Extremely, extremely random. So it just does what it wants. So like I said, the weirder you are, the more natural it actually looks. Which is a strange concept, but that's how nature is. It just does what it wants. We're just getting lost in those fluffy clouds. Who knows, maybe you're looking at one of your clouds and you see something, like when you look outside and you're like, ooh, that cloud looks like a rabbit, you know? You can always do that on purpose. You could make some little clouds that look like stuff or kind of a hint at something. You're like, ooh, maybe that cloud looks like a little car zooming by. Who knows? This is your painting, make it your own. And remember the little shadow color? I'm doing that each cloud as I go. I add my shadow, and it's very messy. I'm gonna hold it up really close. Maybe y'all can see it up close. I want you to see how messy those brush strokes are. Look at that. So messy. Got those shadows in there, but they're so messy. Up close, you can see how expressive those brush strokes get. Don't be afraid to express yourselves on that canvas. You know what, I'm gonna even show you the example one. I painted this one too for our wall, but look how messy these are. I even made these clouds even messier on that example. So you can see how those colors are so lightly swirling in there. Keep moving and grooving, and then pretty soon we are gonna be probably getting into our letter C very soon, if not taking a little break. We've been painting for almost an hour already. That's crazy. Time flies when you're getting lost in those brush strokes and having fun. That's what it's all about. Keep smushing it like you mean it. And remember, some of these will get covered up with, you know, your mountains and your letter C, so don't worry too much. Especially the clouds that are lower, you know, don't make those too perfect. You might be a little sad when you have to cover it all up. These clouds can be even messier down here. So like I said, we won't see them too much. But it's good to have them. And even if you overlap them and you only see a little bit of them, it's a good thing because it adds some cool depth to your painting. And like I said, it just kind of pushes those clouds a little further into perspective and all that good stuff. Nothing wrong with that. Again, just swoop those little shadows in while it's wet. While it is wet. This is why I got to emphasize using lots of paint, because the more you have, the easier you're going to blend your colors and all that good stuff. If you don't ever have enough paint on your brush and you're like, why is this paint not blending? I'm trying to blend and it's already dry every time I try to blend. That just means you need more paint on there because it really doesn't work good without enough paint. If you don't have enough paints, it's kind of like putting a drop of water on a water slide and trying to go down that water slide. It's going to be real painful. So blending only happens while that paint is wet. And hey, if you like to finger paint, you could even blend your shadows in your clouds by finger painting. I could come in here and just smudge this with my finger like this, and that could blend my shadow into that white and that kind of thing. So don't be afraid to play around with it. You can be one with the paints. I love to finger paint. It's so much fun. And surprisingly, you can create some really cool textures finger painting. So don't be afraid to be one with that paint. That's what it's all about. Looking good. Now we got some clouds on here. Our sky's looking a little more lively. It's a nice, beautiful day. A few big puffy clouds. We'll get into the next part soon. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm checking the chat out. Oh, cool. I can see some of y'all's clouds. These look fantastic. Awesome. Looks great, Jen. I can see those clouds. Very nice. Looking good, Joanne. Beautiful. I can see yours too, Amber. Nice work. Awesome, everybody. Keep getting lost in those clouds. I will be right back. I am back. All right. So let's see. It's almost 6:55. Nice. Looking good. I like how fluffy that one on the left is too. Yeah, I would add at least one more, like a medium one in the middle there. Or maybe a little bit to the right. And I think one more and you're solid. So take your time on your clouds, everybody. No rush there, no rush. Once we got our clouds, we're going to take a short little break for 5 minutes here. And mostly, anytime I have a break, it's really just to get the painting dry. That way, we can layer on top. Remember, it's a layering process. And let me scoot this up a little bit. There we go. It's a layering process. So, we kind of have to let it get dry in between layers so we can build on top. And that way, our colors don't overmix. A nice thing about acrylic paint is it dries very quickly already. So we don't have to, wait too long to dry those. But also, since it's a 2-hour class, the break time is a good time to stretch your legs. If you've got some wine you're drinking there, you can refill your glass, get some more snacks, use the restroom, that kind of thing. Or hair dry it if you need to hair dry it. Looking good, Virginia. I just saw you hold it up. Very nice. So we'll have a little break in a minute, but no rush. We'll probably break at about 7 o'clock. So we'll spend a few more minutes on those clouds. And we'll have a little 5-minute break. And after the break, we get to dive into our mountains. That's going to be a really fun step. I love painting mountains. They're really cool. And then we'll get to add our Colorado Sea and all these cool ripples in the water there. So we've got a fantastic background to build on top of. So nice job, everybody. Nice job. And something fun I'd like to try out, if you want to try with me at home. Up here, Painting with a Twist, something we like to do during class as kind of a reminder that we're just here to party while we paint, Anytime I feel like it, or maybe after you finish a step as like a little, congratulations, well done on your step. Every once in a while, I like to ring my party bell. Check this guy out. He's got a unicorn on top. So he's here to party. So this is just fun. If you want to do this with me, every once in a while, I'll ring this bell. When you hear this, your job at home, you know what to do, Laura. Give me a burst of energy, just be like, woohoo, cheers. Or my personal favorite is caw. So whatever sound effect inspires you. If you're drinking wine at home, don't be afraid to take a sip of that wine every time I ring the bell. I'm not encouraging, I'm just giving you options. Everybody likes options. So once you finish your clouds, that being said, give yourselves a hand. And that's what the party bell is all about. It's just a reminder, we're just here to party. So nice job, y'all. I'll be checking the chat here, and then in a little bit, I'm going to pause it and refill my supplies. But feel free to hold it up if you want to show me anything. These are looking awesome. Very nice. Everyone's doing a fantastic job. Oh, nice. Looking good. Yes, I like that extra cloud in there. Yeah, that balances it out nicely. I like that. Very good looking clouds. Nice shape to those too. Let me know if you have any questions there. If you add any more, I would only do some little baby ones, you know, but I probably wouldn't add too much more because like I said, those mountains are going to cover up a lot more of that sky along with that letter C in the top. So I say 3 to 5 clouds is perfect. All right. Let me know if anyone has questions. I'm just hanging out here. Awesome. And any feedback is great, Shaw. Let me know anything you're thinking. And as we're working tonight, if you're ever taking like progress photos, it is kind of fun to take pictures of your painting as you go. Not only is it cool to look back and see how your painting evolved, you know, seeing the steps, but it's also a good little trick or a little tool to take little pictures on your phone. Helps you kind of see your painting from a fresh perspective. And this kind of helps you kind of see the whole image a little easier there. And then when you're looking at it on the picture, it kind of helps you be like, oh, maybe I do want to add something here, or no, I'm happy. That looks great. You know, it really helps you see how it's going to look on your wall. And that's a good little artist trick. Artists do that all the time. They take pictures on their phone to minimize the image, helps you kind of see the whole picture a little easier. And if you're liking it in that picture, then you're golden. You know, if you're looking at that picture, you're like, oh yeah, maybe I do want to add one more little something here, you know, it helps you figure that out a little easier. So, and like I said, it's fun to get progress pics as you go. And if you do post any of your work as you're working tonight or at the end, we would love to see it. So if you're looking for us, you can find us on Facebook, Google, Instagram. All you got to do is look up Twist Colorado Springs. We are the Colorado Springs located off of North Powers Boulevard. So if you're looking for us, that's how you'll find us. I know there's a couple other studios in town, but we are the one off North Powers. So we are the East Colorado Springs studio. And again, if you're looking for us, Twist Colorado Springs on Instagram or Facebook, Google, you can find us. If you have a good time with me tonight, give the Paint Doctor a little shout out. I can't tell you how much I'd love that. Otherwise, y'all, we are going to have a little 5-minute break. It looks like it's 7 o'clock. So don't worry, I am still here, but I'm going to be muting my mic. So if you're not hearing anything, that's just because I'm muting my mic. And I will be right back. So again, the break time, this is going to be our time to refill our drinks. You know, I'm going to go ahead and put this up. We'll want to refill the drinks or get some more paint. Most importantly, dry that painting. Or give me some little shout outs in the chat box. But otherwise, I'm going to put this up for a minute, and we will be right back. So, take 5, everybody, and I will see you at 7:05. It's a good time to refill that beverage, get a snack, or use the restroom, or most importantly, get that painting dry. If you have a hair dryer, it'll dry your painting in like 30 seconds. You can just fan it back and forth, but don't hold it in one spot. Or if you have an extra plate, you can fan your painting with an extra plate to dry it, but it does dry pretty fast naturally. All right, everyone, I will be right back. Nice. All right. Sweet. What's up, everybody? I'm back. So it's time to dive back into our painting. You do want to make sure your painting is somewhat dry before we jump back into it. If you need a little extra dry time, let me know. I'm going to give everyone another minute to make their way back. I see some of y'all fanning it. And if you're wondering, is my painting dry? I have no idea. If it doesn't look glossy, then you're probably safe to give it a little tap. You can give it a little tap with your fingers, little spear fingers, or jazz hands. Check it out, check it out. And it doesn't have to be, 100% dry. I would say at least 90% dry would be fantastic. If it's like just barely tacky, you're probably okay. We're gonna be getting into the mountains next. Let's go and hold these up for us so we can see those. And they are, mostly white, so as long as it's pretty dry, you'll be okay there. But there is going to be a lot of little shadows in those mountains. So we're going to be working on the mountains because our sea, it's going to be running into the mountains there. So once we get them on there, we can add this and let it bleed into our mountains, which is kind of fun. So we're going to be playing around with a lot of these little elements next. So the mountains here are going to be pure white. So make sure you've got white. Again, we'll need lots of white. So if you're running low, reload your white paints and make sure that canvas is mostly dry. While you're kind of making sure everything's ready there, I am going to give you a little demo on mountains, and then we'll go from there. So I'm going to grab my little demo canvas again, where we were making little clouds earlier, and I'll show you some stuff about mountains. So when we draw out the mountains, you'll probably want to draw out the mountains with your medium or your small brush. And we're going to be using just pure white. But on here, just so you can see it, I'm going to use a different color just to show you how mountains work. Now, the important thing with mountains is no straight lines. You do not want any straight lines with mountains. It just doesn't look right. And I'm going to show you first what not to do anyways, so you can see how funny it looks if you make straight lines for mountains here. So I'll just kind of give you a little demo over here. You don't have to do nothing. If you want to practice a little mountain though, and you've got a little piece of paper there or a little tester plate, it's a great place to just kind of play around a little bit. So first off, when you make mountains, like I said, no straight lines, or as I call them, sober lines, all right? So if you drink a lot of coffee like me, you feel a little jittery, that's going to help you out a lot with these mountains. So don't be afraid of those jitters. But here's why you don't want straight lines for mountains. If I made all my lines straight, it looks like a chevron pattern. It's like, wah, 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 wah. There we go. So if I did that for my mountains, you can see how unnatural it is. You don't want any straight lines. That just makes it look like a chevron pattern. What I've also seen happen a lot is mountains that turn into a heart monitor. They kind of look like this. They're like, beep, beep. So those mountains are, they're barely surviving. We don't want to do that. So don't do that. Here's how you make mountains, okay? For the most part, I'll show you an example here. They're very wide triangles, and they've got a lot of lumpy, bumpy funkiness, And again, what do they call the mountains here? They call them the Rocky Mountains. So, we've got to emphasize that rockiness. So you can see there's no straight lines in these mountains. You can see there's lots of bumpiness, lots of jitters there. So that's what we got to keep in mind when we make mountains. You don't have to copy the ones on here exact. You can make them however you want. But let me show you what a more natural mountain would look like. It'd be a lot more like this. If I was starting on the end here, I could have just like the edge of a mountain, then I can come up here and I'm going real jittery, real jittery. Sometimes you can have just little rolling hills. They don't have to be much. But you can see I'm very jittery and they're very wide triangles. You see this looks much more natural than either of these other funky options I made at the top there. So this is looking a lot more real. So that's what you want there, is very lumpy, wide triangles and rolling hills. Notice where your letter C is going to be, it's going to turn more into rolling hills. And then on the edges, that's when you're going to get those mountain peaks. And that's how we're going to be playing that little game there. So it doesn't have to be very big on the left here, but on the right, that's when we want to get those really nice, big, tall peaks. And we'll be playing around with that. So I'll go ahead and jump back to my canvas here. And we want to use our medium or our small brush for this. And we'll want to load our brush up with lots of white paints. So once you're ready, rinse off your brush, whichever one you want to use there, medium or small. Load it up with white. Lots of white there. Again, nice and saucy. And it's officially time to party on, my twisters. Woo! All right, so we've got white paints on our brush there, nice and saucy. And feel free to watch me make my mountains first, and then you can kind of go from there. Sometimes that does make it a little easier watching me go first there. So again, I'm gonna start on the left. Keep in mind, let me give you a rough idea here so you know. Your letter C, if I held my hand up like this and made a big letter L, that's about how long the base of that red letter C in sun is gonna be here. And I'll show you, let me show you again on here before we start. See, if I hold my hand up there, that's about how long the base of that's gonna be there. So just make sure you have a little section of rolling hills that's very short, and that's all you need is about that much length. So what I'll do here is I'll start on the end. I'll make a little rolling hill. I'll make it a little taller here, nice and jittery. Once I get a few little jittery peaks, I'll hold my hands out and be like, okay, that's how long I want my little rolling hills. So I'll put a little dot there. And then I just make a few little rolling hills here. Nice, jittery, little rolling hills. Some are still taller than others, but that way you know you've got a little spot for your C and it's not gonna be too tall. From there, here I'm gonna tilt it so you can see it a little better. From there, once you're about halfway across your canvas, you can start getting into those fun, really tall mountain peaks. And it's up to you how tall you want them. You know, if you don't like one of your happy little clouds there, you can cover it up with a little mountain peak. So once you kind of get to the halfway point, you want to start jittering up, making taller and taller stuff happening here. I'm gonna get one of my tallest peaks, jitter back down, make another little peak, and maybe one going off the page here. So it doesn't have to be exactly like mine. Everyone's will be a little different. Make those mountains how you want them. Once you've got them, fill them all in with lots of white. You just glob it on and you go all the way down to that little shadow line we created there. If it's easier, you can just do a little line tracing above that shadow and then fill it in from there. And sometimes that can make it a little easier there. Nice and jittery. Shake it while you make it. Or you can add more jitters into it if it feels too straight. You know, don't be afraid to mess with that a little bit. Really emphasize those Rocky Mountains. Like I said, I could always come back and make my peaks a little taller. So don't be afraid to start them a little small and then grow them as needed there. Grow them as needed. Always fun. I like to come back and sometimes play around with them a little more or make them a little taller. But I always start a little small first, and then I lightly grow those mountains. That way you can kind of control it a little easier. It's always easier to make them bigger than it is to try to take it away by repainting some of your sky. So that's what we'll play around with. If you're feeling nervous to make those mountains, deep breaths, keep breathing. Don't pass out on me. You'd be surprised. I've actually had a few people pass out on me while painting. So keep breathing. Keep that oxygen flowing. If you're feeling nervous, again, deep breaths or just a sip of some liquid courage will get you there, all right? You got this. I believe in you. When you're filling in those mountains, remember, the paint needs to be pretty wet because we're going to blend into those mountains. So really make sure that you've got a nice layer of wet white paint there. Let's see. Oh. Okay, sorry about that. I just saw I was cutting out. I'm going to repeat what I was just saying there. So for anyone that missed it, again, when we're making our little mountain peaks, again, nice and jittery, and you want to have at least, if you make a letter L with your hands here, about that much space of little rolling hills. Everything beyond that point can get much taller on the edges there. Once you've got them all drawn out, make sure you fill these in with a nice layer of wet white paint because we're going to blend into this paint before it dries. So it needs to be pretty wet there. Glob it on and smooth it out. And again, you can always make your mountain peaks taller. Start them small and then grow them as needed there. And if there's anything that feels too straight, if you have any straight lines, you can always come back and add more little jitters into those rocks anywhere you need to. It's kind of like clouds where you got to just be weird with it. No two little rolling hills or mountains should be exactly the same. Let me know if you have any questions or you missed anything else while that was cutting out there. Sorry about that. Hopefully nothing else cut out there, but let me know. Leave me any little comments in the chat. Awesome. I hope you're feeling in touch with that inner artist tonight. I'm gonna hold my mountains up a little closer. Maybe this will help. I'm gonna hold those up for a bit, just so y'all can see mine, how jittery they are. So, it almost creates like a little happy face in the middle of the mountains where it dips down into the rolling hills. So that's kind of fun. Happy little mountains. And then once we've got these filled in, we're gonna start adding shadows. And again, we gotta do that while it's wet. So we don't wanna wait too much longer. So what I'm gonna do for the shadow color is mix up, again, a purple, like a purpley gray or a blue gray. And it's just up to what you have on hand there. If you have a dark red and a dark blue, you can just mix those two with a little bit of white. So equal parts blue and red with a little bit of white. Otherwise, if you are working with a blue gray, you'll do a big scoop of blue, a little scoop of black, and a little bit of white, and that will get you a nice shadow color as well. So I'm gonna do a scoop of red, a scoop of dark blue, and just a little touch of white in there. Not much white at all, because we do want it to be a shadow color. And so mine's kind of a purpley gray. It's definitely a little bit more blue than red, but it's like a kind of a purpley gray. Now, it depends on what you got there. Some reds, I'm using a red that's called bright red tonight. And when you mix this red, it doesn't make like a very vibrant purple, but it makes what I keep calling a purpley gray. Let's say your red is more of a magenta red. You're gonna get a much richer purple if you're using like a magenta red. It might be a lot more grapey looking. If you want it to be a little bit grayish, you could add a tiny hint of black to it to make it more of a purpley gray if you want there. So it just kind of depends on the shade of red that you're working with tonight, but both work fantastically. So for our shadows on our mountains there, once you've mixed up your color, if you're not already, you might want to switch to your smallest brush. We might want to switch to Little Mama. Say, hey, Little Mama. So I want to get our little bitty Little Mama brush out for the shadows in the mountains. And these are so much fun to make. So I'll go ahead and show you the example when I'm close, and then we'll dive into it. Now, I want you to notice on the tall mountain peaks here, it's kind of like ramps, or I like to think of it as like little slides. So it's like you're sliding down your mountain there. They're like little ramps, little curves. Notice it's not a straight line. So this line, this edge of this line, it's got a little wiggle to it. It's not just like a straight line coming down there. That's how all of them are. So let me show you some on my canvas, and then we'll go from there. Now we're gonna start with just the big tall mountain peaks, and then from there we're just gonna add some very subtle little rolling hills. So I'm gonna start adding shadows just to the right side of my big tall mountain peaks here. So I'm gonna take my little brush, I'm gonna go to my funky little purpley gray that I've created here, and I'm gonna roll my brush in that. If you're using a round brush, the best way to load it is to lay it down in that color and then spin the brush, roll it, roll it, roll it. This will keep your brush from having a bad hair day. It'll kind of evenly coat your brush in paint, and that helps a lot. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is go to the peak of each of my tall mountains here, and I'm gonna create a darker shadow on the right side. So watch how this goes. I'm gonna pull this a little closer so we can see those details a little better there. So I find the tallest point of the mountain, and then I make a little wobbly line coming down. Don't go all the way down, go about halfway down. So you find the tallest little peak, and then you wiggle. You wiggle however you want. You can change directions as you go. Once I've got my little wiggle, I start pulling lines, curving down the mountain. You want to feel the slope of it to the right side here. And they all come off of this line, some longer, some shorter. And it should be catching the wet paint underneath there and giving you different little shades of this purpley gray. The more you brush it, the more it just turns into one solid shade. The less you brush it, the more streakiness and little shades you're going to see there as it starts kind of blending into that wet paint a little bit there. And that's how we're gonna start, just the shadowy side, just the shadowy side. So I'm just gonna have 3 little peaks here. After that, we'll kind of change things up a little bit, but same thing. You start at the tallest point, make a little wobbly line. I like to make it a little slanted, and then you just pull little curves, like little ramps. Feel yourself kind of skiing down that mountain. You wanna feel little slopes happening there. Little funky little slopes. And since this other mountain's kind of going off the page there, I might add a shadow on the other side of it in just a minute, but we're gonna make it lighter. Now let's say some of these shadows are a little darker than you wanted them. You can always, or maybe your paint started to dry a little bit. I could always wipe off my brush, grab white, and I could start from the white part of my mountain and just brush into these shadows from the base. This will help blend them a little bit, mix it in a little more so it doesn't feel like just a hard line there. And then we get these really fun little shadows there. I'm gonna hold that a little closer. A little closer. Be one with the mountain peak. You've got this. Again, notice that the line, they can always change directions. This first one I did, it's got a very funky little wobble to that edge. This other one's a little more slanted to the right, but you can really play around with that. I could come back to that one and change it up a little. If I wanted to bring it in a little further here, I could add a little curve coming this way and change that direction up if it was too perfect, you know. And some lines can be shorter, some longer, but notice that I start at the peak. It's a little slanted, but it can have a lot of wiggles in it. It can even have little gaps. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. Once we get the dark side of the mountain, we're gonna just add more white to this color and add a lighter shade of this color to the opposite side of the mountain. So I dunk my brush in that purple, I dunk it in a little bit of white here, and I go to the opposite side of these little peaks, and I'm just gonna pull some more messy, little slopey lines, and they shouldn't be as dark as the ones you just did, and they should be a little more messy there, and a lot lighter, very light. Just some messy little brush strokes. Again, feel like you're sliding down that mountain. Make, you can use sound effects as you go. Feel like you're skiing down that mountain. You want to feel that mountain. Be like, whoosh, feel it. It's all about little textures here and funkiness. Nothing too precise. So I'm gonna hold that up again so you can see. So now one side of my peak is a deeper purple. The other side is a very light, pale, purpley gray. And we're feeling both sides of this triangle. Feel like it's like a funky, bumpy little triangle. Like a 3D little funky pyramid there. So, one side, feel that one side curving down, and then feel the darker side curving. Really feel both sides of that triangle as if, like I said, you're sliding down it on your butt or you're skiing down that mountain. Feel those slopes. Be like whoosh as you go. And as long as one side is a little darker and one side's a little lighter, bada bing, bada boom, you got it. And that's all you need. If you want to, this little peak going off this page here, I might give him a little bit of a shadow as well, just a little bit, not as much, but a little bit. And it can be a little lighter. That one going off the page there. Now from here, it's just gonna be mostly rolling hills. We're gonna actually draw in new hills. I'm gonna show you the example one up close again. If you look kind of under the base of those mountain peaks, you can see there's like little rolling hills. They're just, the foothills of those mountains. And so that's what I'm gonna play around with next. Take your time here, y'all. You're doing fantastic. You got this. So I'll go back to my purpley blue-gray there, and I'll start adding some rolling hills in the base of these mountains, little foothills. So what is that? It's just like we did over here, just very jittery arches, some bigger, some smaller. So these are smaller mountains. So I'm gonna come in front of these, and you can go in front of your big tall ones and add some of these fun little rolling hills like this. And I'm using that darker blue. Some hills can go in front of other hills. You can have little small ones underneath those. You can really play around. You can have as many little layers of hills as you want. But you don't want them to be really harsh like that, where mine are like a thick outline. So if your paint started to dry on you, get a little bit of white and go along the inner edges of your outline and just smudge it a little bit so it doesn't feel like a hard line there. We just want it to be kind of very light in there, just these very light smudges implying little hills in the distance. Nothing specific here. And then just keep working your way over. Outline your little hills Add more little hills in front of them if you want, below them. And then smudge them with white if that paint's dry so that they don't feel too much like thick line work. We want them to feel very blended in there. So just follow your little arches, add little smudges, and then add more little arches underneath them as you go. And if you don't like one, take white and just smudge it out. You can just literally just smudge it out. Let that white just kind of turn it all into a very, very pale texture underneath there. And it doesn't have to be much. So some of these I'm going to come back and just really smudge them good with some white, just so they get very blended in to my mountains. You still want to see a good amount of white in your mountain peaks. Still want to see a good amount of white here and there. You know, we're covering a lot of it, but don't be afraid to still have a good amount of white here and there. And if you start covering too much, you don't still have white showing, you just get a little bit of white and just very lightly smudge it in there. A lot of this stuff is very, very textured. It's very funky and doesn't have to be very specific, which is kind of nice. So the weirder, the better there. I'm gonna show you mine up close again so you can see those little arches. They're very blended into that wet paint there, and we're just implying little mountains in the distance. Play around with this for a little bit, and then we'll go to that next part. And you can come back in here anytime you want, make some of these darker, some of them lighter. If you want some of them to have like a little deeper shadow on one side than the other, you can always make some of these little rolling hills have a darker shadow on the right, just like you did with your mountains there. And that can imply some more stuff if you want. But for the most part, messy, messy. More messy, more better. Nothing perfect here. We want to feel that jittery rockiness. If you have questions, let me know. Otherwise, just keep flowing and going. Be one with that brush. And that's pretty much it for our mountain peaks there. Again, let me know if you have questions. We'll just play around with that for a little bit. But you can see how those shadows really make a nice difference in our mountains there. And then like I said, if it gets too dark, you just get a little more white and smudge it in there. Especially the rolling hills can be very, very messy, very implied. And for the rolling hills, it can just be just texture. It doesn't have to be very much. It can just be some texture in there. Because remember, we're going to have our letter C come in front. I'll show you the old example as well again here, up close. So you can see those little foothills and how they're just so messy. There's not a lot going on in those, not a lot. Awesome. Looking good, my twisters. Woo! Just make sure you don't forget to breathe, remember. And hey, if you look over and you're painting with somebody, they might have their tongue sticking out right now. If they've got their tongue sticking out, you got a great opportunity for a paint tattoo. They won't notice. Or maybe you look over and your neighbor's got some veins pulsing in their forehead. If you notice some veins up in there, again, you've got a great opportunity for that paint tattoo. So carpe diem. Give them a little painting on their arm, a little face painting. Depending on how focused they are, they very likely will not notice. I'm gonna check the chat. Let me know if you have questions. Can you check my lines? They feel straight. Okay, I just saw your comment, Jen. Let me scroll over so I can see your screen there. Let's check it out. Do you mind holding it up really close to the screen? Oh, nice. Okay, definitely looks great, not too straight. I can see your mountain shadows have a lot of little rocks in them, and I like the angle that you've got. I think you nailed it. That's perfect. Usually I see like a perfectly straight line. You've got really nice rockiness, so I think that's great. If you want to mess with it, you can always, if you look at mine here, you can always add like a little S curve to it. So if you ever feel like it's too straight, take one of your peaks, and I'll point on mine here so you can see it. But you could go to one of these and just add like a little curve going the opposite way just a little bit if you wanted. But that's really only if you want to. I think you've got really nice rockiness there. Ooh, yeah, I like the little S curve. That's cool. That adds a little more depth to it. I like that. Very nice. And then same thing, you'll pull the little lines curve into the right on the darker side of that S curve. And then the left side of it will, be the lighter shadow. And then you've got it. Let me know if there's anything else I can do for you, Jen. I hope that helped answer your question. Sweet. Awesome, y'all. And just a little reminder there, I can't see everyone's screen. I have to scroll to see everyone's screen. We've got a nice class tonight. I think we have 12 painters. So thank y'all so much for painting with me tonight. This is awesome. Now we can all twist at home together. Awesome, awesome. If there's anything else you need help with, Paint Doc is here. No insurance, no copay needed, all right? I will not leave you hanging. Okay, I'm gonna scooch it back just a little bit here. And back forward. All right, sweet. So, let's see. It's about 7:30, and all we have left is our Colorado Sea and our nice ripples and reflections at the base here. So we're going to be getting into that part next. This part's really fun, and when we get into our letter C here, your mountains don't have to be totally dry for this, which is kind of nice. So don't worry if they are a little bit wet, because we're going to be going over them anyways. And we might go ahead and start off with the bottom of our reflecting letter C first. That way, if the mountains are a little bit wet, it gives them a second to dry. Because we do want to paint over the mountains a little bit, and if it's too wet, those kind of purpley grays or the blue grays could mix with your yellow and turn it kind of a muddy, funky color. We don't want that. So we will be playing around with that next. So we'll let the mountains get a little dry, and we'll start off with our reflection of our letter C at the base here. So I will tell you, if it's easier for the reflection, if it's easier for you, you can take your canvas and you can flip it upside down. Sometimes that makes it easier. So if that's easier for you, don't be afraid to take that whole thing and flip it all the way around. And sometimes that can just make it easier to reach the spot you want to reach. And I don't know if your canvas or your easel or wherever your painting is like mine, but I'll kind of show you on mine here. I get all this paint buildup at the base of the easel. So if I flip it upside down, it can just help you reach things a little easier sometimes when you've got that happening. All right, so let's get into that letter C. And like I said, if you don't have red, you can just make a cool sunset that's reflecting in the water as well, and it'll look beautiful. So nothing wrong with that. And let's say you don't have yellow. All you got is white, blue, and black. You could make this a moon, and you could do it a white and add some purpley grays for shadows. So I'm going to use my medium brush for this. So let's rinse off that medium brush. It's been a dirty brush. Get it clean, get it clean. Paint little circles on the bottom of your cup. By the way, I don't know if you're using a medium brush today. I forgot to name this guy at the beginning. We've got Big Mama, we've got Little Mama. What's the medium brush? The middle child is going to be Slim Jim or Slim Shady. Say, what's poppin', Slim? So get your medium brush, rinse it good, rinse it good. And we're going to start off with white. Dunk your brush in white. Remember to glob it on. Once you've got white on your whole brush there, lots of mayo. Then we're going to dunk the brush in mustard. Let's get some yellow on top. Go ahead and cover up all the white. Now with lots of yellow. Dunk the whole brush in white, then dunk the whole brush in yellow. We're double dipping. Mayo and mustard. It should be a deli sandwich on a brush. A little mayo, a little mustard. What we're going to do here is start off with the sun. So the sun is going to be, if you make a letter C with your hand like this, nice letter C, that's about how wide it's going to be. So make like a medium letter C and then turn it whoosh, sideways, about that wide. So I'm going to go and think about where you want this. Remember the red letter C is going to make it even bigger. So don't be afraid to be a little further, on the right here. But I'm going to go in the middle of my foothills area, and I'll put a little dot where my fingertips are. Boop, boop. 2 little dots there. They're a little hard to see on mine. I'll make them a little bigger. So 2 little boops. Use those sound effects. Boop, boop. Sound effects always help. Once you got your 2 little dots there, all you're gonna do is connect them with a half circle. Now, when you're drawing a circle, it is easier, in my opinion, to kind of have your arm at arm's length here. You wanna feel the motion of the ocean there. You know, if you're really close like you are with a pen or pencil, things get a little more wobbly. If you hold it a little bit at arm's length, this can help you get a nice circle there. So kind of feel out a little circle in the air. And then when you're ready, connect them. I'm gonna lean back here. And we'll just do a nice little half circle, a little happy face. Whoop. If you're feeling nervous, deep breath, sip of liquid courage, and go for it. Now, the cool thing about this stuff is it's okay if your yellow is a little transparent, a little see-through. That's a good thing. It's gonna give our painting this really cool effect, especially where it's rippling in the water there. Once you've got that, you can draw a little line, you know, across where it's touching the base of those mountains, and we'll just fill it in. Just fill it in, white and yellow. Just let it mix on the canvas there. Now, the nice thing about starting with our reflection is this is gonna get messed up. So don't worry about a perfect circle, but it does get you, you know, a good way to practice it before we get into the main one. And that way you can kind of feel it out. But like I said, we're gonna mess it up. If you look at this example again, look at the base where it's reflecting. There's lots of ripple lines coming out. So we're gonna mess it up in a minute, but that's okay. All right. Now, while you have white and yellow on your brush, we don't want to clean it. Keep it a dirty brush, all right? Keep it dirty. What we're gonna do now is add the yellow sun on top of the mountains there. But first, we don't want to touch the mountains. First, we are going to be just going above the mountains. And this can be a little bit bigger. I'll show you again the example one. You can see the yellow sun on top can be a little bit bigger, a little bit taller. And then it gets squished when it reflects in the water a little bit there. So that's okay. So same thing, white and yellow on your brush. Make sure you got plenty of paint on there. Reload if you need to. Reload. Mayo and mustard, white and yellow. Nice and saucy. And then what we'll do is we'll go above the mountains and just go to where, you know, find the edges of your sun there. And you can just go right above your mountain peak, put your little dot, then go to the other side, put your little boop. And then again, just connect those with an arch. Don't touch the mountains yet, but it's okay if you do a little bit, because like I said, we're gonna paint into them in just a sec. And this can be a little bit bigger if you want up top. Same thing, once I've got it on there, I'll start filling in the middle of it, and lean back when you do this. Lean back, it's gonna make a much nicer circle. If you lean back. Lean back. And then if you kind of get this one on there and you're like, ooh, maybe I need to add a little more down here, you can always come back, add a little more to one side if it got a little bigger. White and yellow. And again, let some of that background show through, nothing wrong with that. That's gonna happen a little bit. Lean back when you make that circle. Lean back. And look at that. You can see this is already adding this cool reflective effect happening. And this is why I was like, hey, if you don't have red paints, don't worry about it. This looks awesome. You don't have to have the letter C on there. But the letter C will look awesome as well. And I'm going to be doing that next, so don't worry. Now, what we want to do, once we've filled in our yellow sun on the top and bottom there, we want to add a little bit of yellow into your mountain peaks here. Now, it's okay if your paint's a little bit wet. That's not a bad thing. If it starts mixing too much and you start getting some muddy colors in there, that's when you want to rinse off the brush, maybe let it get a little dry, and you can add a little more on top. But we're going to use white and yellow, and you don't want to do a lot of this, and you want to leave the top of your mountain pretty much white still. But wherever your yellow is touching these little mountains, I'm going to very lightly smudge in a little yellow in the middle of those mountains. Very lightly, like this. And it's going to create like this cool effect. I'm still leaving the tops of my mountains mostly white. In the middle of them, I'm smudging yellow where the yellow sun touches them. And you can go a little outside the where it touches. You can go a little further if you want. That's okay. And it's okay that your colors underneath are going to show through a little bit. I'm going to show you mine up close now. Just messy little yellows in there. Very, very messy. If your paint was already dry and it didn't kind of lightly mix or blend into it, you can always add a little more white, you know, and kind of lightly blend it with a little white. If it feels too bold for you, you can always get a little bit of white, go back over the top of those mountains and just kind of very lightly brush this in so it doesn't feel like just some harsh lines in there. So if your paint got a little dry, that's a good little trick. Just come back with a little white and kind of smudge it in here and there along the edges and in the middle. But this can be really loose, very messy here. Nothing wrong with that. Here's again mine up close. You just want to see little hints of yellow in the mountains. That's the goal there. Nothing too specific. And again, you want to try to leave the top of your mountains still a little bit brighter than the middle of them. And I'll show you on this example too. If you look up close, so you can see it's real messy. You're just seeing a little hint of that yellow in those. And you can see this one a little easier since it's already dry. The other one catches a little more shine from the light and the wet paint there. And then after this, we're going to get into that red letter C. And the cool thing about this is we might get a little bit of orange shadows happening inside our letter C, which is really, inside our sun, which is really, really fun. And we'll probably emphasize that a little more. And actually, now I'm thinking about it. Let's go ahead and add a little shadow in that yellow before we put that red letter C on there. So what we'll do here is we're gonna make like, we're gonna make an orange or what I'd call a nacho cheese yellow. So what we wanna do is mix about 2 scoops of yellow with a little scoop of red. So, and you don't have to clean your brush. You can just keep it a dirty brush. We're gonna make Ed's secret sauce. Get 2 scoops of yellow, plop that onto your extra plate there, and then just put a little tiny drop of red into it. So 2 scoops of mustard and a little splash of ketchup. We wanna make Ed's secret sauce. But you don't have to clean off your brush for this. So here's what mine's looking like. I'm making a very yellowy orange. So it's a little more yellow than orange, or what I call nacho cheese. So kind of like a nacho cheese yellow, or you could just say a light orange, So once you've got orange, we're gonna take this before it's too dry here, and this will also help our sun separate it a little bit more from the mountains. You're gonna go on this one on the top, and on the inside edge of it, I'm gonna smudge orange, and I'll also outline above my mountains with the orange, like this. So I've smudged orange, and then you want to blend that a little bit. So I'm going to brush it along the edges so it just blends lightly into my yellow, or you could come back with more yellow. But if you catch it before it's too dry, it'll just smudge the inner edge, so blend it with my yellow. Or if you're having trouble blending, finger paint. There we go. It looks like I cut out for a second. So now you can smudge the inner edges with your finger. It also works great for blending if you're having trouble blending, or just come back with yellow and you can start yellow in the middle and smudge that out to blend it a little more. And that works good too. So whatever works best for you. That gives it a little shadow and just kind of helps also separate it. You can see from the mountains a little easier. If you want to put a little bit of this in the one below, you can. I won't do as much, but maybe a little bit, you know, it would look good. You put a little bit down here as well. And again, let it just kind of very subtly smudge into that yellow. Or if you're having trouble blending, again, just rinse your brush, get some more yellow and maybe a little white, but mostly yellow. And you can absolutely start in the yellow area and then brush into the orange area to help those colors get to know each other a little better. So don't be afraid of that. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna get a little more yellow in the middle here and just brush into my orange since my paint was getting a little dry. And then I'll smudge it out. Let me know if you have questions there. Otherwise, you got this. I believe in you. Again, mine's a little darker just so y'all can see it good. You don't have to make it as dark as mine. But you can if you're like, ooh, I really like that nice deep orange in there. Orange will give it a little pop, a little fun color theory for you. Orange and blue are complementary colors. So when you put orange and blue next to each other, it's very eye-catching. It really grabs the attention there. It really pops because those colors, they complement each other. So that's kind of nice. If you get outside the lines, whoops, don't worry. I will tell you why. We can clean up the edges with our letter C, which we're going to add on next. So any questions on the sun before we get into our letter C? Let me know, let me know. You can see how this is really giving that painting some cool depth. Checking the chat here to see if anyone has questions. Let me know, let me know. And again, keep breathing. Don't forget to breathe when you're doing those details. Keep that oxygen flowing. That's where that twist comes in handy. So if you've got a little wine on you, or liquid inspiration as we call it, that always helps. So we'll get into the letter C next. You've got two options for your letter C, two options. If you're doing it, and if you're like, I just want a sun, work it again. So I'm gonna bust out Big Mama. Oh, I just saw your question there, Shade. Let me check it out. Let me move over here so I can see your screen. Perfect. Okay. How do I fix this? What's bothering you there? It looks like I see a little, possibly a little smudge. Is it mixing with the blue? Did it turn gray on you? It looks like maybe it turned a little blue, gray, or maybe green. So I see you're typing there. While you're typing, I'll go ahead and say one more thing. Let's see. Orange looks dried on blue. Okay, I have a thought for you. So some of those lighter colors, like yellow and orange, they're such thin colors, they always are a little bit transparent. So sometimes you have to add something to thicken the paint. So I would add a little white to your orange and your yellow. This is going to thicken it up. If your blue paint behind it is still wet, then you might have to get it dry. But if it's all dry, you're good. But yeah, sometimes those lighter colors are very thin, very transparent. So I often add white to thicken up my yellows and oranges just a little bit. It does make the color brighter, but it's going to really help cover up any of that background. So if you're having any issues, I will just tell you that's just kind of the nature of yellow. Usually when any yellow you have, they're usually a little bit thin, and they usually take something to thicken it up. Same thing with orange. I don't know what it is with those two colors, but they always are a little bit thin. So anytime you're having trouble with the color, white is the best way to thicken it. If you don't want the color brighter, there are other ways to thicken it too, but that's the easiest. Hopefully that helps you out there. Oh, before the letter C there. Okay, I just saw your comment, Virginia. And so before the letter C, let's see, I'm looking for your screen here. Let's see, where are you? Oh, there you are. I found you, Virginia. Perfect. Okay, so what we did after the yellow is we took orange, we mixed yellow, we still had a little white on the brush with red, so 2 scoops of yellow, 1 scoop of red, made a light orange, and then I just put orange on the outer edge and above my mountain peaks, and then I blended that into my yellow, and I did a little bit down here as well. So after the yellow sun, all we did was smudge orange along the edges of our suns, and we didn't put that in the mountains, just on the suns there, and blended that in, and that's all we did there. Looking good. Oh, there we go. Now I can see it good. Awesome. Nice job, Virginia. Beautiful. You got it. You got that orange blended in there. Very nice. That gives it that cool little glow. So then the next step is going to give it that even bigger glow when we have the red letter C wrapping around this. So we'll go back to that. So again, I'm going to use my big brush. If you don't want to use the big brush and you're a little nervous to do that, don't be afraid to use your small brush to draw this out, or your medium brush. In fact, if you have chalk, like chalk that you would use for a chalkboard, you can even use chalk on canvas, and this works really good too if you want to draw it out with chalk, because you can paint over chalk. But I'm just going to go in with it. So I'm gonna use my Big Mama and lots of red, just pure red here. So I'm gonna make it a nice and saucy brush. Now, this brush, the width of this brush is gonna pretty much give me the width of my letter C. That's why I like to use the big brush. So to keep the shape of your brush and to keep it from having a bad hair day, you wanna take this brush and when you load it with that paint, flip it like a little flapjack and lightly press those bristles together like this. So flip it like a pancake, flip it like a flapjack, and just press those bristles. It's kind of like you're sculpting the hair of your brush. So that he's got a nice and flat there. You want to gel him up so he's got a nice little mohawk. So we're going to take our brush here. And like I said, I want to hold the example one up here. You can see how the width of my brush is almost the width of that letter C. So that's why I like using the big brush, because it just gets it on there so much faster. So it's like 1.5 brush strokes is all it really comes out to. So what I do to start is I hold my brush and I'm using the edge of my brush. I'll show you what I mean by that. If you use the edge of your brush, you can actually get a thinner line as opposed to like the full width of the brush. So if you're just using the edge, this works great. So I'm going to use that edge, and that's why I flatten out my brush to make a little slanted line. So wherever you want that C to start there, I would start at about, let's say, if you use your knuckle, the top part of your knuckle here is about 1 inch. I would say at least a knuckle above your mountains there, or a knuckle up, or a little further. I'm going to go a little further, like 1.5 knuckles. So I hold my knuckle up there, and I'm going to put a little line. Boop, I just put a little line like that. And then I just trace right next to my sun here. This is where you might want to lean back a little bit, but you're going to go right next to that sun there. And you just think of it as like a little racetrack. You are just zooming right next to it, your little race car here, and just go, whoop. Stop when you get to your mountains. And this is where, if you need to, you can get a little brush to get in there a little better. And some of my clouds are going to show through, which is kind of cool. When you do this again, look a little bit ahead. It's like driving a car. Look where you want the brush to go, not where it's at. It's going to flow much better if you're looking a little bit ahead. And again, don't forget to breathe. Don't forget to breathe. But I'm going to make mine a little thicker. So mine's going to be like a brush stroke and a half. So 1.5 there. So I'm going to add like another half brush stroke wrapping around. Whoop. You got this. You've got this. Before you start, if you haven't started it yet, you can always, again, just take a big deep breath or a sip of something, and you got this. Smooth it out. Again, it's going to be easier for you. Kind of hold it at arm's length there. Feel that whole circle. Be the circle. And the cool thing is, if you run into your if you run into your sun at all, that's okay, because we made orange already. So if it mixes into that and you get a little orange on that edge, it could be a darker orange, but it's not a bad thing. It'll look cool. So don't be afraid of that either. Once you get the top part, you're going to do the same thing on the bottom. If it's easier to flip your canvas upside down, flip it upside down. Otherwise, leave about the same amount of space. Make a little slanted line to start, and then wrap it. Again, your little race car just going, zooming right next to it there. Zooming right next to it. And again, I'm going to do with my big brush here. The brush I'm using is about, it's a 1 inch. I believe this is a 1 inch. Yep, it's a 1 inch flat brush. So basically, my letter C here is 1.5 inches wide, if you want to get specific. So I do 1.5 brush strokes, but yours can be bigger or smaller. You know, it's really up to you. If you're trying to cover up more stuff, you can always make it bigger. If you're like, I want to cover up this cloud, make it a little bigger. If you're like, oh, I really don't want to cover this up, I really like this part, make it a little smaller. That's okay. And we are going to mess up our reflection one, so don't worry about it too much. All the edges of it are going to get all funky, so don't worry about that one too much. Let me know if you have questions. I'm going to check out the chat here. Awesome. Looking good, my twisters. Just making sure everyone's breathing. All right. Very good. Awesome. From everyone's that I can see, those letter C's are looking awesome. Very nice. Oh, I can see your shade. That looks fantastic. Yes. You rocked it. Well done, my friend. That's it. Uh-oh. I may have cut out. Am I back now? Oh, nice. I see yours, Virginia. Beautiful. Nailed it. That is awesome. Very cool. Thanks for showing me all. It's awesome. Sweet. These look fantastic. Amazing. Now, we'll add, let's see, we're gonna add just a tiny bit more. There's not much left here, actually. And we're getting close to 8 o'clock. We might need a few more minutes tonight. So we might go a little past 8, but I don't like to rush you. So, and oh yeah, just so you know, they are gonna be uploading these classes just temporarily, that way on YouTube. That way, if you missed a step, you wanna come back to a step, or someone was late to our class, you can catch up. But it will not be there very long. It'll only be there like a couple days and then it gets deleted. So if you do miss any steps or you get a little behind, just know they are gonna upload the whole video to YouTube for only a very, very limited time in case you missed anything. It'll only be there, like I said, maybe 24 hours, and then they delete it and that kind of thing. So what we wanna do here is add a little highlight. Kind of like how we add a little shadow into the little orange into our sun, we can now add a little bit of a highlight into our red letter C. I'm just gonna do it on the top half because the bottom's gonna be having all these ripples, so you won't do anything there. All I'm gonna do is keep red on my brush. Make sure your letter C is still wet. If you need to, you can put a little more wet paint in the middle there, but it should still be pretty wet. I'm on a recycled canvas that dries really fast, so sometimes I have to come back and rehydrate it a little bit. But while it's wet there, what you can do is keep, again, the red on your brush. Take your brush and dunk it in just a little bit of yellow, just the tip of the brush. So I've got red on the whole brush. I dunked the tip of the brush in some yellow. And then maybe a corner of the brush can get a little white. So here's what it looks like here. I've got red, a little bit of yellow, and even less white. So I've got lots of ketchup, a little mustard, and a splash of mayo. Take all 3 colors and just kind of go to your plate here and just lightly tap and roll your brush so it kind of mixes. It's going to make like a very lighter, kind of peachy. You don't want to fully mix it, just kind of barely lightly mix it. It's going to make a more of a lighter red, an orangey red. And then you don't have to do this, but it's kind of fun. I just go right in the middle here and I just go whoosh. And I just do like a little highlight. Just swipe it right through the middle there. And it gives it this fun little glow on top. Whoosh, right through the middle. The more I brush it, the more it'll fade. Doesn't have to be much. It can just be a little something, something. Just a little something, something. And get very blended in there. And it's again, it kind of makes it a little orangey looking, like a very dark orange or like a peachy or like a pinkish. It might be kind of pinkish. That's okay. And I'm just doing it to the top, not the bottom. I'll show you up close. On this example, that's what it looks like. A little swoop, just a 1 brush stroke motion. Just a little whoocha. Use those sound effects. Here's the other one, just so you can see it again. It's just that little texture on top you're seeing there. And it just adds like a fun little highlight, just a little something, something. Doesn't have to be much. And then we're gonna come and add reflections on the bottom, but before that, we wanna add, just like we did with our yellow, a little bit of red into our mountains, just a little bit. So I'll hold the other example up again here. And you can see how messy this is. So there's the yellow we've already added. And then the part that's red, where the red touches the mountains, we're gonna have some very subtle, kind of light red, basically pink, inside the mountains like we did with the yellow. Just a little bit. So I'll use the little brush for that. Little mama. We're done with big mama. We'll get little mama. And what I'll be doing here is dunking my brush in red and a little white. And lightly mixing them so you get a nice pink. So dunk your brush in red, then white, and make a light pink there. And then I'll kind of get this a little closer so we can see good. You're just gonna go where your letter C is touching the mountains, and inside your mountains, you're gonna smudge this. and let some of it run into the yellows and goes a little bit past the red, where the red touches your mountains. You can go a little bit past it in the mountains there, just a little bit. Now we just want to pull in some little pink textures here. And that's all it is. Tilt it really good, so hopefully I can see that a little better. So it's very messy, very subtle, but it's kind of fun. It just adds that reflective quality again, so that some of that color from the sky is reflecting into the mountains there, or from the Colorado Sea. It connects it a little more. And then again, if that pink is too strong, you're like, ooh, that's a little more than I wanted. Just get some white, and you can just add a little white to recreate the tops of those mountain peaks, or just add a little more blending in there. You can add white and just kind of lightly smudge it, and that can help a little more too. So it's very subtle, but it's a fun little effect there. And again, I'm going to hold mine up closely. Hopefully you can see it. I know it's such a light color, so it's not going to show up a lot on the camera here. But there it is, just a little pink, Bam. And that's it. That's it. Add white to blend if needed. But you just want to see a hint of yellows and pinks in your mountains, and that's kind of fun. Just connects everything a little bit more. After that, all we got left is water ripples. And then if you want to, there are some birds floating in the sky here, flying away in the distance. So I will show the birds as like a last little detail you can add. But do keep in mind, this is your painting at the end of the night. So, you know, if you want to put the Loch Ness Monster coming out of your water, you can do that. I'm not going to stop you. Who knows, maybe you want to put Bigfoot hiding behind one of your mountain peaks. Nothing wrong with that, all right? So if you want the Titanic, you add the Titanic. Okay, so we'll get into water ripples next. I'm going to scoot this back a little bit so we see it a little better there. Since we're going to the bottom of the canvas now. And that's all we've got left. Ripples. I'll show you the example one again here. All these fun. Ooh. Looks like my, oh, there we go. So we're going to add all these fun little ripples down here. And then you can see there's some birds flying if you want them. And that's optional. So the ripples, for the water ripples, the hardest thing is not making all your lines exactly the same length and, you know, being loosey-goosey with it. So if you have trouble being light-handed, if you have a tendency to be heavy-handed, which most of us are because we're used to using, you know, pens, pencils, tablets, stuff that requires a lot of pressure, then again, hold your brush further away from you. The further away you hold it, the easier it is to do really light lines. And the less you press down, the thinner your brush strokes are going to be anyways, and you'll get those really thin lines. So really hold it a little further when you do this, and you want to just kind of dust the canvas. You just want to caress that canvas. Sweet talking. So we're going to start off with red first. So I'm going to take my little brush, and I'm going to roll it in some red. So we'll just go ahead and dunk that in red. And remember, when you load up those little brushes, you want to let them take a nap in the paint and spin the brush. That'll keep little mama from having a bad hair day. That'll make her a happy little brush. So I'm going to take my red, and all I'm going to do is go to my water now, and where my red letter C is at, I'm going to start pulling little lines coming off of this. And you want to run into your sun a little bit. It's okay if any of the paint's wet. That's a great thing. So I'm going to start here inside my C, and I just lift off. Some lines longer, some shorter. Some are going to come into this part. Some out into the water there. Don't make your lines all the same. Some longer, some shorter. Don't press down hard. Just lightly caress that canvas. We're going to mess up this letter C down here. Mess them up. Mess them up good. You're not going outside the letter C, though. Or, I mean, you're not going to have random red lines outside of it. They're all coming off of the red letter C. But you can put them anywhere you want coming off of it. As long as they're kind of touching it, then you're golden. And this is why I was like, yeah, don't worry about your reflection so much. We're going to mess it up with little ripples. So I hope you didn't spend too much time on your little reflection. As we're getting all these little ripples going now. These are really fun, and it's water. So, you know, if you need to make little water sound effects as you go, whoosh, do it. You're one with that water. Keep it loose. Keep it loose. More messy, more better. And you can see how this is gonna really give it that shimmer, that little shine, and make it feel like that is really reflecting into the water there. So that's really fun. There's not a lot of red ones. Once we've got the red ones, we are gonna be making yellow and white lines. So we're just gonna mix white and yellow together because we gotta thicken up that yellow because it's so thin. So I'll rinse off the red, do clean off the brush. And I will get white and yellow next and stir those together. You might want a little more yellow than white, but the white is again gonna help it thicken it so that it shows up a little better. And then same thing, we're gonna start in the yellow sun in the water here and pull little lines coming off. And these should run into your letter C, and these can come a little bit disconnected. So like where our red lines were all touching or coming off of the red, some of these yellow lines can be by themselves in the red areas, but you don't wanna go too much further past the red areas. You wanna keep the yellow mostly near where the yellow's at. But again, some lines longer, some shorter. And again, don't be afraid to have some of these ripples coming out just a little further. We don't wanna go too far into the water, but we can have a few more random ones now. The hardest thing here is just not making your lines all the same length, because that's what our brains like to do. They like to put things in patterns without us realizing it. And so sometimes that's the hardest thing, is just keeping it random. So that's number one there, making all those lines different. And you can see how that's giving it that cool little shimmer, that cool little shine. We're gonna add a lot more too. Some longer, some shorter. Wherever you want them, whoosh, feel that water. And I'll show you the other example too. That's just how it is. Funky little ripples. Again, make sound effects as you go if that helps. Whoosh, be one with the water. Feel the water. Feel those brush strokes. If you've got some more wiggles in your lines, it's just a windier day. Nothing wrong with that. They don't have to be perfectly straight lines. They can have a little movement in them. That just means it's a little windier and you're getting some more choppy waters there. That's not a bad thing. Movement is fantastic. So have as much movement as you want there. The last color we're gonna add is going to be a dark kind of purpley blue like before. So, what we're gonna do is mix up that dark purpley blue again. This time we want it pretty dark, so we won't use as much white. And again, if you don't have red, you can make a dark purpley gray, or I mean a blue gray. So what I'm gonna do now, I've rinsed off my little brush really good. I'm gonna grab red, a scoop of blue, and I'm just gonna mix those two together, just red and blue at first. It's gonna make a really dark color. It almost looks black, it's so dark. Blue and red, tiny splash of white. Or you could just use dark blue, would also work fantastic. So blue, red, tiny splash of white, tiny splash of white. If you don't want to do that, you can do just dark blue or blue gray. Once you've got a really dark color, dark blue or dark purple, we're gonna add a lot of lines down here. Look at this example again. Now we're gonna add lines all over that water. We're gonna make it rain on that canvas. So we gotta start making it rain. We're gonna come out here and try not to touch your letter C area yet. Let's do everything else and then we'll come into the letter C. That way these colors have a little longer to dry so it doesn't get funky on us. But everywhere else, I'm just gonna be dusting it like this. Some lines longer, some shorter, and we're gonna add lots of these fun little wispy lines all over the water, everywhere except for the letter C right now. Even underneath your mountains here looks really good. If you have little ripples at the base of the mountains, as another fun spot. They don't have to be a solid line there. And when you're trying to get those thinner lines, remember, just lift off with your brush. The more you lift off, the thinner your brush stroke gets. The more you press down, the thicker it gets. So it's the opposite of using a pen or pencil there. You want to be light with your touch always. And we're just adding lots of these nice little shadowy ripples. Some longer, some short. Remember, don't make all your lines into a perfect pattern there. Got to keep it really random, really random. This is going to add that nice little shimmer, that little shine. And definitely have some lines at the base of those mountains. That's going to look really nice. That just makes those mountains pop off the page even more. And then finally, once you've made it rain, however many water ripples you want, you're going to come back and add a few of these coming in to your letter C area. Not as much, but a little bit, creeping in there. It's up to you if you want a lot or a little bit. Just be careful not to let the colors mix too much when you start overlapping them into the letter C area and that sun. If it starts mixing too much, you just rinse the brush. But since it's a darker color, it'll probably overpower these lighter colors. And again, we're not blending anything here. So it can be very messy. A little messy, a little better. Some lines thicker, some lines thinner. If you don't like a line, you could always come back, with some blue or even white, and you could just kind of dust into it to thin it out or even add some lighter highlights, So don't be afraid of that. It's always a little trick as you're going there. Let me know if you have questions on those little ripples. Again, use the little phone test. Take a little step back, lean back, take a little picture on your phone there, and this can help you decide if you need more ripples or if you're happy. If you're like, that's plenty of ripples. That water is moving. But definitely have some, again, at the base of the mountains, really everywhere. You're just making it rain down here, making it rain. Fantastic. Look at that water. Take a little step back once you get those ripples. Admire that beauty. Admire that shimmer that you've created there. Take a little step back once you've got however many you want. Take a step back. It'll help you decide if you want another ripple somewhere or not. And finale, we have some little baby birds on there, but I see some comments, so I'm going to check those out real quick. Let's see. Say, yellow and white. Oh, yes. So again, just to reiterate our water ripples, we did red ripples coming off of the red letter C. We did yellow and white mixed up, and we did some yellow and white ripples coming off of our yellow sun there, and those also go a little bit more into random parts of the water. And then the last color was either dark blue or dark purple there, red, blue, and white mixed up for our darker ripples there. The goal for the darker ripples is just that you can see that it's darker and giving it that cool little contrast against the light parts of the water there. And then finally, there's some birds on here. So you can see we're almost there. We've got everything on here except for those little birds flying in the distance. So if you see those little guys there, there they are. We can add those finally. Okay. So, oh yeah, and if you're looking at this painting, by the way, it looks like there's some stars in the sky. That was an accident. I think someone accidentally splattered paint on here. That happens a lot in our painting studio. So, if you're like, why didn't you put stars on there? It's not on the original one, but hey, if you want some stars, that would be cool. You just use the back of your brush and you can dot random little clusters of odd numbers. And that works great. So let me show you the birds and then we will sign those beauties to make it official. And I know it's we're about 15 minutes past class, so I apologize about that, but I don't like to rush you. So here are the birds here if you want to do them. And if you are done and you're happy and you don't want to put birds on there after all that beautiful work, you don't have to put a bird on there. But if you are going to put a bird on it, I would practice it first and then go for it. So they're very implied birds here, and they're going to be just black paint. That's the other reason it's a little scary, because it's the only part of the painting that's pure black. So here's how they work. What you do, I'm going to paint them really big over here on my little example one, and then we'll, because they're pretty small, and then I'll show you on the canvas there. So you start with a slanted line, and you want it kind of messy, kind of like a messy little slanted line. And then once you get your little messy slanted line, you go to the middle of that line and you make the little wings coming out. You go whoosh, and you make like a really wide letter M. And this implies little birds flying in the distance. Now they're a lot smaller than this. This is just to show you really big, but that's how they all start. So practice one if you want to do it. You start with a little line, slanted, And you make like a very, very wide letter M coming out that looks like it got sat on. And you get these fun little birds flying in the distance. And that's very implied, so they don't have to be much. If you don't want to do that style, you could do the very classic style where it's just like a very wide letter V like this, you know, like these kind of little birds. And those also look awesome. So whatever works for you. But practice one if you want to have it. And that way you can kind of decide. And then I'll show you on mine now. Use your smallest brush for this and black paint. And I'll tell you a little trick. If your black paint is a little thick, you can actually add a drop of water from your paint water cup into your black and stir that up. This will make it a thinner paint. You don't want a lot of water, but a little bit, and this will help you get thinner brush strokes. So if you're having trouble with a thin brush stroke, a little water goes a long ways when you mix it in that black paint. Otherwise, we're gonna have little birds flying out, and you wanna be random with it. So try to do an odd number of birds. I like to start them really small, flying out from my sun here, and then they slowly get bigger here. So I just start with my little slanted line, make my little wide letter M coming out. Use those little sound effects as you go. They really help. And they're so implied. There we go. Got another little bird flying there. And then I'm gonna have them gradually get a little bit bigger as I go. But really don't be afraid to start them pretty small. And if you're having trouble getting a thin brush stroke, remember I was telling you earlier, the less you press down on the brush, the thinner that brush stroke is gonna get. So just really be light with your touch. Lift off as you go. Lift off. Some birds bigger, some smaller, just to give it that cool little depth there. And then I'm gonna gradually have them get a little bit bigger here. I've got 6, so I want an odd number, so I'm gonna add definitely a couple more here. I'll go ahead on one of my big ones. Let's add a big one up here. It'll be like my biggest bird flying off. And then I'll add a few smaller ones around them. More medium. But really don't be afraid to make these pretty messy, you know, because the messier they are, it kind of gives them a little more movement and just kind of makes them feel even more feathered. So there's nothing wrong with that. It's a lot of birds on this one, so it's up to you if you want to do this many or not. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I've got 12 birds. I gotta add one more to make it random. There we go. Do count them. It's kind of funny how our brains naturally will put this in a pattern without realizing it. I catch myself all the time, and I go, "Oh, I did a perfect even number of things. What am I doing?" So then you throw in, you know, the little random guy in there, and then it feels like nature. Nature is so random, so random. Once you have your happy little birds on there, the very last step, if you want it, would be to sign that beautiful painting to make it official. I usually sign mine in the corner with a little TD for Tyler the Paint Doctor. Just kidding, my last name actually does start with D. It's Dixon, D-I-X-O-N. But otherwise, once you've got your final little touches, give yourselves a hand for successfully completing a painting tonight. Thank y'all so much for painting with me tonight. I had a blast. I hope y'all had a great time painting with me from home. And like I said, this is a new thing we're doing, so I'd love any feedback you have for us. Please give me a little shout out online, Facebook or Google if you had a good time tonight. Again, my name is Tyler. They also call me the Paint Doctor. Otherwise, my name was Bert, and I wasn't here at all if you had a bad time. Just kidding. But definitely let us know how your experience was. We'd love to see your pictures. So if you take a picture of your painting, post it on our Facebook. Send it to us. We'd love to post it ourselves even. So if you're looking for us, again, Twist Colorado Springs. Or if you post anything, hashtag Twist at Home. This is how we find you. So, and like I said, we're on Facebook, Google, Insta, all over the place. So if you're looking for us, Twist at Home, we are the East Colorado Springs studio off of Constitution and North Powers Boulevard. So that's where we are if you're looking for us. And again, if you need supplies, check out our Take It Home kits. And we're going to be doing a lot more of these virtual classes. So if you enjoyed this, please come to my next class. I would love to see you there. Check out our calendar and you'll see the next classes coming up. We have an awesome aspen tree coming up next. and some other fun ones for next month. So keep an eye on that calendar, y'all. But thank you so much for painting with me tonight. Y'all are fantastic. I'm going to hang out for just another minute or two. If you have any questions, leave them in that chat. Otherwise, I'm going to be heading out just a couple here. And if you want to check out my personal art, I also do all kinds of, oh, nice job, Laura. That's sweet. That looks amazing. Well done. If you want to check out my art, I'm going to put it in the comments there. I am Tyler Dixon Murals, if you're looking for me. And I like to do murals, and I do my own canvas paintings at home and stuff like that, too. So if you ever want to see what I do, I'll leave that in the chat there. Oh, nice job, Amber. That looks fantastic. Well done. Beautiful, beautiful. Oh, nice job, Virginia. That's awesome. I'm going to scroll so I can see everyone's. I'm going to keep scrolling here. Nice, Joanne. Jen, that looks fantastic, too. Y'all are doing so good. These are sweet. Oh, beautiful. Diane, I see it. Beautiful. Y'all did so good on those. Man, y'all made me look good tonight. Awesome. Oh, that looks great. Beautiful. Love those mountains. Awesome. Fantastic, everyone. Well, I left my my little handle there if you're looking for me. Oh, thank you for saying that, Jen. I'm so glad you had a good time. I will see you next time. I hope I see all of y'all in my next class. Like I said, this is a new thing we're doing. I'm really excited about it. So hopefully I'll see you there. But thank y'all so much for painting with us at home and twisting at home. Well done, my twisters. Thank y'all so much. I had a great time hanging out, making this sweet Colorado painting. Hopefully I'll see you in my aspen tree class. Otherwise, I'm going to head out, everybody. Y'all have a fantastic night and find a beautiful spot to hang those paintings. They came out awesome. All right, y'all. Take it easy, everyone, and have a fantastic night. Y'all were a blast. I'll see you next time.